Lord of the Mystery, The Return of the Stars Chapter 681-700. This is the first real meeting between Klein and the Night Goddess. The previous meetings were more of a conversation in the air, with limited conversation. You have a lot of doubts in your heart. The voice of the Goddess of the Night is the same as the authority she symbolizes. It carries the unique tranquility of the night, making people feel at peace when listening to it. Indeed, there is a point. Klein looked at the Goddess of the Night in front of him, whose specific appearance was still difficult to see clearly, and said with a smile, "In the long history, you have hidden your identity very well. If it weren't for me this time, advance to Sequence 1 and further master the abilities of Origin Castle. It will never be guessed that you are the earliest traveler on Origin Castle. After you were born, I intended to gradually guide you and make you realize that I was the first time traveler. However, the appearance of the stars forced me to give up this idea." The eyes of the Goddess of the Night seemed to accidentally glance at the starry sky blocked by the church dome. "The stars paid special attention to you and gave you a lot of guidance, which was of great help to you. And you truly believe that the stars are one of the 3 time travelers on Origin Castle. I'm used to hiding in the dark night, and because of my special status, I didn't reveal my identity. At the same time, I was also on guard against the stars. Now that you have reached this final step, you should be able to figure out many things on your own." The stars. Klein sighed and said with a smile, "Although the stars deceived me on this issue, I still believe that he has no ill intentions towards me. Do you think such an idea is childish and stupid? Your humanity has been maintained very well." The Goddess of the Night said in a soft voice, "The humanity of the stars has also been maintained very well. At this point, you are very similar. No matter how you look at it, the stars look like travelers from Earth. Of course, it's possible that all of this is an illusion created by the stars. His origin has always made the entire starry sky turbulent." Klein just listened quietly, and finally he said, "Is there a solution to the conflict between the goddess and the stars?" "Yes, as long as I give up the idea of promotion to the old one." The Goddess of the Night answered affirmatively. "This is almost an impossible choice. Aggregation is instinct, especially in this turbulent era before the end of the world. Whether it is the gods within the initial barrier or the outer gods in the starry sky, they all want to quickly increase their strength so that they can survive from the future. Survive the apocalypse. Today, the Goddess of the Night has mastered the uniqueness of the path to the God of War, and has most likely completely accommodated it, leaving only the uniqueness of the path to the God of Death. The current God of Death, Grey Carey, is a devout believer in the stars and a contracted messenger who has gained his trust. The stars will definitely protect her. If the Goddess of the Night wants to advance to the past, in addition to the necessary source of essence, she also needs to deal with Grey Carey from the stars, which is obviously difficult. If it weren't for this contradiction, the Goddess of the Night would not sometimes take the side of Adam and the true Creator. In fact, there is no possibility of reconciliation between him and Kungsheng. Instead of worrying about these things that have nothing to do with you, let's think about promotion to Sequence 0 first. I'm not worried about being promoted to Sequence 0. Klein's tone was very calm. I'm not worried about Aemon either. What really scares me, and what I fear from the depths of my heart, is the fallen Lord of Mysteries. The closer he gets to the Sequence 0 Fool's throne, the more he understands how special Source Castle is, and the more he feels the terror of the Lord of Mysteries. If there was still hope in the fight between him and Aemon, he couldn't see the slightest possibility of hope in the fight with the Lord of Mysteries. The gap between the two sides is really too big. The Lord of Mysteries sealed the source matter outside Source Castle and the Sea of Chaos in the Western continent, isolating all hidden existences within the initial barrier, except God. The path to promotion to the past forced other hidden existences to wake him up and break the seal. Such methods and techniques are truly terrifying. In this universe, the old days are the end of all gods, and the symbol of the pillar is above the old days. The tone of the Goddess of the Night was also full of fear. The Lord of Mysteries, God, and the fallen Mother Goddess are the pillars that support the old days. The 3 pillars of this universe are like different aspects of the original Creator, possessing authority and power beyond understanding. Do you know why a terrifying existence like the Lord of Mysteries died in the first place? Although the era when the Lord of Mysteries fell is very ancient, from some current clues, it can be vaguely speculated that his fall should be related to God, and it is very likely that the two fell at the same time. The Goddess of the Night told the secrets of the ancient times in a soothing and gentle tone. The corpse of that god formed the first blasphemous slate in the Sea of Chaos. The thief's path is unique on the edge of the blasphemous slate. It can be seen that in that ancient era, there was a secret and extremely fierce confrontation between God and the Lord of Mysteries, and both eventually fell. The uniqueness of the way of the thief is that God tore it from the Lord of Mysteries. No wonder the extraordinary path Ammon is on does not belong to the 5 extraordinary paths included in the ancient sun god. It turns out that Ammon is actually the child of the Lord of Mysteries and the ancient sun god. Did the ancient sun god give birth to Ammon in order to prepare for stealing the position of Lord of Mysteries in the future? No wonder Ammon's character is so bad, probably due to the influence of the Lord of Mysteries. Klein thought about a lot of things in an instant, and finally thought of the source of the Lord of Mysteries, Fu Sheng Xuanwang Tianzun. If Tianzun hadn't caused so many things, he wouldn't have become a time traveler, forced to leave his own time, come here, and step by step become the container for Tianzun's reawakening and rebirth. Alas, that is the Lord of Mysteries who can arrange even the gods, and is one of the 3 pillars of this universe. For him, arranging a small role like me should also be a matter of convenience. You still have one last choice. The goddess of night looked at Klein's complicated eyes. Leave now, give up becoming a sequence 0 fool, prevent the Lord of Mysteries from awakening from your body, and live in this world with the strength of sequence 1 from now on. Does the goddess think I should give up? This is your own choice, and it is also your last freedom. The voice of the goddess of night was like the moonlight falling on the starry sky, ethereal and ethereal. We come from the same place, and I don't want to arrange you to take such a path all the way. Klein smiled and said, compared to Ammon, I should not have any advantages. Why does the goddess always choose to bet on me? If it is just to support a new Lord of Mysteries, Ammon does have more opportunities than you, and the possibility of success is greater. Yes, this is also a problem I haven't figured out. Klein nodded. Buried in the past, that era is our common memory, and it is also a critical period for the birth, germination, and growth of our humanity. Even though I have a long life, it is still my most beautiful memory. You have its mark on you, so I am more willing to help you. Is this the friendship of fellow villagers? Klein felt sad. Just like Russell, at the end of his life, he still wanted to leave his diary for his fellow countrymen who traveled through time and space to provide him with some help. Hometown is the past that none of them can go back to. No matter what achievements they have made, they are all lonely travelers. When facing companions from the same era, they will instinctively feel close. Are the stars also lonely travelers who traveled through time and space? Klein was silent for a long time, and then he asked, can Ammon be trusted? I can't give you a definite answer. If the Lord of Mysteries awakens in Ammon's body, will he take back all the high-sequence extraordinary characteristics of the 3 paths of fortune teller, thief, and apprentice? I don't know, and I can't know. Klein was silent again. For me personally, I don't desire to become the old days, but I can't let down or betray those who bet on me. They have helped me more or less. And Ammon is a reckless god. I can't believe in his kindness and any promises. The goddess of night was not surprised by such an answer. If Ammon also possessed Klein's abundant humanity, he would choose to support Ammon even for the sake of his fellow countrymen. He was not the only secret being who had such thoughts. Freedom is indeed unrestrained, but it is impossible to bear responsibility and thus cannot be trusted. If you are ready, go to the Hornichus Mountains. The goddess of night left this last sentence, and took night away from here and returned to her kingdom of God. Praise the goddess, Klein whispered. Even though he knew that the goddess of night had once plotted to use him, in reality, the goddess of night still helped him more. Even if it was just because the goddess of night and himself came from the same hometown, he didn't want the goddess of night to fall at the hands of the stars in the future. Facing the stars, he also had the same idea. It would be best to keep peace like this. No one will become the old days, I hope so. After leaving St. Samuel's Church, Klein looked at the sky. At this moment, the time had changed from night to day. The sun in the sky was not dazzling, but instead exuded a very comfortable warmth. Klein raised his head, closed his eyes slightly and felt it for a while before leaving here. He went to Benson's workplace, Melissa's school, and then went back to their home to take a look. At the beginning, they had agreed to prepare a new home, but his departure again put the matter on hold. With Benson and Melissa's temperament, they would never move to a new home unless he came back. Klein walked around Backland and went to Will's house. Are you ready? Yeah, almost. Destiny will always be with you. Thank you. Klein nodded with a smile and took out a gold coin and handed it to Will. You are almost an adult. This lucky gold coin is my adult gift to you. Only 1 gold coin, so stingy. Will looked disgusted, but his hand quickly held the gold coin in his palm. I hope I can attend your adult ceremony in time. Bah, how can you say such an unlucky thing? You should say that you will definitely appear at my adult ceremony. Klein just smiled and his figure gradually disappeared. If you don't come, you will break your promise. Will said loudly. Klein returned to the house that originally belonged to Don Donstadt, came to the study, sat at the table, spread out paper and pen, and began to write a letter to Mr. Azek. He hadn't talked to Mr. Azek about recent events for a while. After writing down what happened during this period and what will happen in the future, Klein folded the letter paper, took out the Azek copper whistle, put it to his mouth and blew it. The originally huge skeleton messenger appeared in the size of an adult, and knelt on one knee on the ground, respectfully opening his palm. Klein placed the letter paper on its palm, and took a gold coin from the Saphira castle and put it on it. This is a thank you for the long trouble. If you can't take the initiative to accept it, give it to your master and let him distribute it. The skeleton messenger was stunned for a few seconds, and then he didn't dare to go against Klein's will. He closed his finger bones, held the letter paper and the gold coin, and his body collapsed like a waterfall, fell to the ground, and disappeared. Klein only had 5 such special gold coins in total, and in addition to the 2 given to Will and Mr. Azek, there were still 3 left. He was going to give one of the gold coins to the messenger lady, who had helped him out of trouble many times. As for the remaining 2 gold coins, he already had a candidate in mind. In a tavern in the capital of the Balam Empire in the southern continent, in the dim candlelight, the melody from Backland and the recitation of ancient poems were floating. In the center of the crowd, in the focus of all the drinkers, there was a man with a full beard, who looked a little sloppy and a little elegant. He had a good voice, like the calm warm sun after being weathered, singing Backland's melody to the people of the southern continent. Long time no see. Klein naturally appeared at the wine table next to him, holding up a wine glass, and smiled at Leonard who was just finishing his chant. Leonard was shocked, but before he could say anything, Klein, who suddenly appeared in front of him, suddenly disappeared and left, leaving only a glittering gold coin on the wine table where he had just sat, like the wine money. Find a chance to take that gold coin in your hand. Leonard suddenly heard the words of Pales in his mind. Klein, what is he facing? The fool, Aemon, the Lord of Mysteries. I can't participate in it. Then wish your friend all the best. Klein originally wanted to give the last gold coin to Hastur, but he felt that such a gold coin would not be of any use to Hastur, the star. The crown of the stars does not need such a gold coin to embellish it, so Klein gave this last gold coin to Rissel. For this fellow countryman, a little more luck may help him to a limited extent. Rissel lightly tossed the gold coin in his hand and asked Klein to guess whether the gold coin would be a head or a number after landing. Klein casually said a number, and Rissel got the result that the number was facing up. It seems that the goddess of luck is still on your side. I have always felt that I am very lucky. Momentary luck may be accidental, but lifelong good luck is definitely the darling of fate, and you are such a person. Thank you. Klein didn't stay in Rissel for too long. After giving away 5 gold coins, he went to see the Tarot Club members and received their blessings. After finishing all this, Klein went to Tingen City, which was the origin of his life. As he wished, he met the captain, whose memory was still very poor, and also met Ms. Daly, who came back to Tingen City to accompany the captain. Unfortunately, the captain still felt inferior about this relationship, but Susan got married at the end of last year, and her husband was a small clerk in a government department. In general, everything was good. In the Honachus Mountains, Klein came back again. Aemon, who seemed to have been waiting here, laughed and said, "You really shouldn't come back. Aren't you welcome?" Klein didn't care about Amon's attitude at all. "You seem very confident in yourself." "My confidence comes from the fact that my opponent is you." "Interesting." Aemon did not get angry, and said gently, "On this road, only one of us is destined to leave alive. Are you really not afraid that you will be replaced by the Lord of Mysteries?" "I am more confident than you in this regard. I hope you are not bluffing." Klein ended his chat with Aemon and walked towards the deepest part of the foggy town. "Fool, can you succeed?" Amon's mouth corners slightly raised, waiting for Klein's failure. Klein was already prepared to be promoted to Sequence 0 Fool. When he walked into the dilapidated and overgrown palace and started walking towards the throne that belonged to Antigonus, time and space seemed to start flowing from this moment on. Outside, Aemon, who was watching quietly, finally made a move. When Klein begins to try to advance to the Sequence 0 Fool, it means that the competition between them has begun. Although he is already a dual-path true god, Klein has not yet been fully promoted to Sequence 0. It seems like a very unfair fight, but it's actually very fair. He has been waiting for Klein here for a long time. Now, he has the advantage, which only offsets the preferential treatment that Klein received before. Aemon did not enter the palace directly for the final fight with Klein, but went to the church where the believers of the Fool were, the Poseidon Church. He wants to shake the anchor of Klein's faith first, and gradually dismantle the possibility of Klein's promotion to the Fool. Alger, who was already the Pope of Poseidon Church, noticed something was wrong when he saw the doors and windows of the entire church opened in an instant. Then, a young man wearing a pointed hat and a monocle appeared in Alger's field of vision, and he happened to look at each other from afar. With just one glance, Alger felt that his heart suddenly stopped beating. He understood that the young man who suddenly appeared in front of him was the blasphemer Aemon. The anchor of the Fool's faith. Aemon pushed the monocle gently, and a ray of light bloomed as bright as day, illuminating hundreds of miles of nearby sea. In this burst of dazzling light, Poseidon Church and the surrounding area dispersed like a puff of smoke. Oh, what a kindness. Aemon just glanced at it and left here, heading to Backland. He originally wanted to try to find the relatives that Klein valued, and use them as a loophole to break Klein's tightly guarded spiritual world. Aemon, you shouldn't come here, it's too dirty. A wheel of fortune that exuded the aura of destiny lay in front of Aemon, preventing him from getting close to Backland. It's boring. Aemon knew that the person blocking him was the new wheel of fortune. At this time, it would not be good for him to start a war between gods. Returning to the Honekes Mountains, Aemon did not use any more tricks. Instead, he entered the ruined palace and began to interfere with Klein's promotion to the Sequence 0 Fool. Darkness fell, blocking the world near Klein. It was the goddess of the night who took action. It seems that you finally chose to place your bet on him. I always thought that my chances would be greater. Aemon didn't care at all about the goddess of the night's actions. Your chances are indeed greater. You can be small and generous. You should be on the side with slim chances. Oh, the goddess of the night actually knows how to gain wealth through danger. She is so greedy. While Aemon was fighting against the goddess of the night, he split hundreds of clones into the palace and came to Klein's side. A spiritual light of wisdom fell from the sky, swept away Amon's clones, and trapped them at the other end of the long river of wisdom. It was the god of knowledge and wisdom who took action. Tisk, who else wants to take action? Aemon did not choose to back down because of this situation. They wanted to buy time for Klein. Unfortunately, he was not only the true god of the thief path. Aemon closed his eyes slightly, and around him, portals with ripples of space appeared inside and outside the palace. A teleportation portal also appeared near his clones, allowing them to get rid of the obstruction and successfully reach Klein. The obstructions of the god of knowledge and wisdom are of no use to him. Under the gazes of dozens of Aemon, Klein was still concentrating on being promoted to Sequence 0 Fool, and was not distracted by what was happening outside at the moment. Aemon each pushed up his monocle, and bursts of dazzling how light flashed, and all the things he collected in his daily life suddenly came over like a sea, flooding the entire Honekes Mountains. There is the sun from the Sea of Ruins, the huge black cross from the true Creator, the bone church from Adam, and the endless lightning from the land abandoned by God. All kinds of things that looked like tatters, but were actually the residual power of various energies, completely enveloped Klein in one fell swoop. But the sharp-eyed Aemon discovered at the first moment that his fate had changed at this moment. The various impacts that were originally rushing towards Klein were instead rushing towards him. Someone swapped their fate with that of Klein in a short period of time. Oh, it's really lively. Aemon stepped back slightly to avoid this round of attack. The entities currently blocking him from approaching Klein include the Goddess of Night, the God of Knowledge and Wisdom, and the Wheel of Fortune. It is difficult for him alone to break through the encirclement. He needed help too. In an uninhabited sea, the once shattered Black Holy Mountain rose again from the depths of the sea. Then Adam slowly walked from a small church by the sea to the huge cross on the Black Holy Mountain. The eyes behind the shadow curtain were partially exposed, and Adam looked at each other, and then the two merged together perfectly. A new sun, a more vast golden sun, rises from the sea and from under the Black Holy Mountain. With just a simple glance from the ancient sun god, his pressure spread to the kingdom of the God of Knowledge and Wisdom within the initial barrier. The God of Knowledge and Wisdom was directly sealed in the kingdom of God, and then the rays of the sun dispelled the shroud of night, also blocking the goddess of night in the kingdom of God. Then his body came directly to Backland and stopped Will, who holds the key of light, is far from comparable to ordinary sequence 0 true gods, and his fate is mysterious and unpredictable, so he needs to be dealt with carefully. Will chuckled at this and said, "The stars haven't taken action yet. You are so impatient, which is not a good thing for Aemon. What if the stars don't come?" The ancient sun god glanced at the starry sky, seeming to see what was happening above the starry sky. I didn't expect that you would choose to side with the ancient sun god now. Hastur, who was sitting in the Hall of Stars, looked calmly at God outside the Hall of Stars. God actually chose to leave the Sea of Chaos and come here to block him, not wanting him to intervene in the fight between Klein and Aemon. If you were me, would you choose to place your bet on Klein or on Aemon? God said with a smile on his lips. Aemon is the biological son of the ancient sun god. Yes, so let the Lord of Mysteries awaken in Amon's body, and I will become the ancient sun god again and be the biological father of the Lord of Mysteries. What do you think of this future? What a bad taste. I find it very interesting. Hastur did not discuss this topic with God anymore. He knew that God must have other plans in choosing to help Aemon. Soon, he remembered that when the first blasphemous tablet appeared, the uniqueness of the thief was accompanied by the corpse of God. Maybe, a long time ago, the dying god made some kind of transformation plan for this uniqueness of the thief that was torn from the Lord of Mysteries. In other words, Aemon, who inherited the uniqueness of the thief, is actually an important pawn in God's deal with the Lord of Mysteries. The ancient sun god thought it was his own arrangement, but in fact it was all planned by God in advance for him. If you think about it this way, God's thoughts are also very scary. But couldn't the ancient sun god notice this? You should understand that the power of the stars can put the consciousness of the Lord of Mysteries into deep sleep. You are blocking my attack here. Do you really want the Lord of Mysteries to wake up completely? God did not answer this question immediately, but looked at the fallen mother goddess who was staring at the place outside the initial barrier with a face of unwillingness and anger, and then at the entangled Klein and Aemon below. If you were asked to choose one among the three pillars to be the spokesperson of the original creator, who would you choose? Hasta pondered for a long time about God's question. What he was thinking about was why God suddenly asked such a question. It is not difficult to see from God's honorific name that God, the original creator, the omniscient and omnipotent, is definitely the one closest to the original creator among the three pillars. I am closest to the original creator, and I am also the existence most likely to give birth to the original creator's consciousness. So, in your opinion, in order to prevent the original creator's consciousness from awakening in my body, what should I do? Hasta understood God's meaning a little. If only God awakens among the three pillars, then the original creator's consciousness is most likely to awaken in his body. But if the Lord of Mysteries and the fallen mother goddess awaken at the same time, the original creator's consciousness may be suppressed, or dispersed. This is probably what it means, but Hasta always feels that God's words are not complete. And this motive is not enough to explain why he wants to help the Lord of Mysteries awaken. Did you really perish with the Lord of Mysteries at the beginning? Hasta changed the question. He still has some questions that he has not figured out. I guess so. God frankly admitted this ancient secret. If the birth of the original creator is the first era of this universe, then in the middle of the first era, I and the Lord of Mystery did have an unnoticeable struggle. At that time, both I and the Lord of Mystery mastered multiple source substances, and both of us could not restrain the aggregation instinct from the original creator in our bodies. It's ridiculous to say that the pillars of the universe, such as me and the mystery, finally fought like beasts, only knowing to follow the aggregation instinct. How ridiculous. Hasta interrupted curiously. Is it just because of the aggregation instinct? If I say that the consciousness of the original creator showed signs of awakening at that time, would you believe it? Yes. Hasta nodded. Your thinking is correct. After the mystery and I mastered the multiple source substances, we noticed the signs of the awakening of the consciousness of the original creator. We both fell to get rid of the influence of the consciousness of the original creator. At this point, God's eyes fell, and he looked at the ancient sun god meaningfully. I don't think you can get rid of the influence of the original creator's consciousness in this way. Hastur shook his head and raised his doubts. The ancient sun god could get rid of the influence of God by falling, but it was difficult for God to get rid of the influence of the original creator in this way. Because that was the original creator. Once his consciousness awakened, there would be absolutely no force that could resist. In this matter, we all have to thank you for coming. God smiled with a smile that was a bit real and a bit fake. Stars, when you broke through the boundaries of the universe, you severely damaged the original creator's consciousness, thus providing me and weirdness with the opportunity to get rid of the original creator. What you said is different from the time of the falling mother goddesses saying that the stars came. Hasta questioned. In the story of the fallen mother goddess, the stars came after the initial barrier was formed, after God and the Lord of Weirdness both fell and disappeared. Fallen mother goddess, he has never seen the stars descending into the sky. God's mouth showed a hint of sarcasm, he is just restoring the past events based on what happened later, which is a guess, not what he saw with his own eyes. If the original creator awakens, as one of the three pillars, he will not have time to escape. How dare he spy on the conflict between the stars and the original creator? Asta was silent for a while, and also laughed. If the fallen mother goddess lied about this matter, then what about you? Have you seen the stars descending into the sky? No. God answered honestly, because it was just a vague feeling, not seen with my own eyes. Have you seen the old ruler Hastur? No. God began to popularize Hastur about what happened in the first era. The original creator woke up from the chaos, the original Earth civilization was destroyed, and the spiritual world was destroyed. The characteristics of the 9 source substances and the 22 paths of God gathered on the earth. Some of the old days were sucked from the starry sky by the original creator, and some of the source substances were activated to form the old days. God was activated and materialized by the Chaos Sea, becoming one of the 3 pillars, and then gradually mastered additional, multiple source substances. Tianzun also mastered multiple source substances during this period. Because he could not control the instinct of aggregation, God and Tianzun fought and both died. At the last moment of his death, God's corpse formed the first blasphemous stone tablet in the Chaos Sea, and Tianzun, with the power of Saphira Castle, sealed all the source substances outside Saphira Castle and the Chaos Sea in the western continent. The story behind it is about the ancient sun god walking out of the Chaos Sea and mastering the first blasphemous stone tablet. When Hastur heard this, he understood that the time when the stars descended into the starry sky was roughly during the period when God and Tianzun fought. Perhaps because they were busy fighting, they did not leave the initial barrier to the starry sky, so they only vaguely sensed that the stars broke through the boundaries of the universe. Hastur thought about various possibilities, and his vigilance against God deepened. God came here to talk to him about these ancient secrets for no reason, and he must have other intentions. You don't seem to be worried that the fool will lose the battle for the Lord of Mysteries. I said I can see the future, do you believe it? Believe. God smiled and said, the power of the stars does not belong to this universe. How difficult is it to see through the future? Then why do you choose to stand against me at this point in time? Because the stars and this universe are naturally hostile to each other. Oh, so this is why you choose to help the ancient sun gods and others to awaken the Lord of Mysteries. Although the Lord of Mysteries and I were once mortal enemies, we can sometimes become friends and comrades. Asta sighed, I may not bring destruction to this universe. You may not, but the stars will. God's eyes seemed to penetrate the Hall of Stars and saw Asta sitting high in the Hall of Stars. I am the stars. Not yet. God's meaning was very clear. Asta did not explain this question again, because he did not know where he would end up. You haven't recovered to sequence 0 yet. God didn't wait for Hastur to answer, and continued, can you tell us the promotion ceremony you need to be promoted to sequence 0? Although I don't understand the star path, I think your promotion ceremony must be very different. Hastur remained silent. Both paths to sequence 0 were difficult, but awakening the original creator and destroying the entire universe was very simple. If I were God, the Lord of Mysteries, or the fallen mother goddess, they would not believe what I said. Do you believe in prophecy? Yes. Sometimes people take a series of actions to avoid the prophecy, which further promotes the arrival of the prophecy. If people do nothing, the prophecy will come as expected. God added, things that have not happened are 1 in 10,000. Because they are unknowable, there are infinite possibilities. Hastur knew that it was useless to say anything more. He suddenly thought of an interesting question. Should good people be pointed at with guns? Although Hastur did not think he was a very kind person, he at least had a conscience above the passing line. Even if a person who possesses powerful power does nothing, he will always be feared until he is completely destroyed. This is a very simple truth. Hastur sighed and stopped talking to God. He looked down at the Hornichus Mountains. The god of steam and machinery and the original witch, who had always chosen to watch, finally chose to stand on Klein's side. The righteous will have many supporters, while the unrighteous will have few supporters. This saying is true for Klein and Aemon. The ancient sun god was 1 against 3, restraining Will, the goddess of night, and the god of knowledge and wisdom respectively. The original witch and the god of steam and machinery joined in, effectively restraining Amon's actions and gaining valuable opportunities for Klein to advance to sequence 0. Time. After fighting for a long time, a little anger flashed through Amon's monocle. He did not target Klein anymore, but directly opened a portal, appeared in the kingdom of the god of steam and machinery, and beat the god of steam and machinery. Caught off guard, the entire kingdom of God began to shake, and a large number of buildings made of brass-colored gears collapsed one after another. A large hole was torn in the scroll of civilization, and cracks appeared in the entire kingdom of God. Hey, I knew you would need my help in the end. Russell's figure suddenly appeared in the kingdom of the god of steam and machinery, and Eamon left immediately upon seeing this. He knew that Russell was in a bad state, but there was no guarantee that Russell didn't have any special means of suppressing the situation, and his goal of severely injuring the god of steam and machinery had been achieved. Eamon, who returned to the Honekes Mountains, could deal with the original witch much more easily without the constraints of the god of steam and machinery. His clones have surrounded Klein and began to look for flaws and loopholes, trying to invade the source castle. This is not a difficult process. Before Klein was fully promoted to sequence 0, Eamon found a loophole to enter the source castle. The main body and the clone were replaced. The clone was responsible for containing the original witch, and the main body entered the source castle, confronting Klein. It seems that this game is over. Eamon looked cheerfully at Klein, who was at a critical moment in front of him. Klein, who is accommodating the uniqueness of the fool, is gradually awakening to the consciousness of the Lord of Mysteries. Klein's body is collapsing. His large body is half composed of transparent and twisted worms, and smooth and evil tentacles extend out all around. Oh, why are you still struggling? When I successfully entered here, the outcome was already determined. You have lost the chance to be promoted to the sequence 0 fool. Eamon spoke in a calm tone while paying careful attention to the various changes in Klein's body. The only thing that worries him now is the awakening consciousness of the Lord of Mysteries. Previously, the shocking change that occurred in the land abandoned by the gods almost caused the consciousness of the Lord of Mysteries to awaken with the appearance of the Key of Light. Although he was suppressed from behind, the consciousness of the Lord of Mysteries did not fall into a complete slumber. On the contrary, he is more active than ever and only needs a small opportunity to wake up and return. At this moment, Klein has been promoted to sequence 0 fool, which has provided the Lord of Mystery with this opportunity. He has the confidence to prevent Klein from being promoted to the sequence 0 fool, but he does not have the confidence to prevent the Lord of Mystery from awakening in his body. But now, he doesn't have much choice. Eamon wiped his monocle crystal glasses, and a dazzling light flashed, trying to directly steal the identity of the Lord of Klein's origin castle. No stealing here. It is forbidden to attack each other here. The sudden rules that came into effect made Eamon briefly stunned. His eyes narrowed slightly to see clearly where the rules came from. Trunsoest brass book. No, it's the fallen Knight Emperor Trunsoest. You are still alive and have returned to the level of sequence 0. Eamon did not hide his shock. Soon, he thought of the answer. It was the stars that woke you up and provided you with corresponding cover. The figure of Knight Emperor Trunsoest gradually appeared on the brass book of Trunsoest. He did not speak, but just stared at Eamon calmly. You have also entered the Origin Castle. It seems that the stars also want to take this opportunity to steal the Origin Castle. Amon's expression became more solemn. If he fails, instead of falling into your hands, Origin Castle might as well be controlled by the stars. Eamon sneered. Do you know the origin of the stars? I don't need to know that much. Eamon didn't speak anymore. The Night King Trunsoest alone could not stop him. The Night Emperor Trunsoest can make the rules, and he can also steal the rules here. As a true god with dual pathways, he is enough to overpower the Night Emperor Trunsoest. This is his confidence and strength. Eamon has created hundreds of clones of Eamon. They have a tacit understanding and are divided into 2 parts. One part is going towards Klein to steal his identity as the master of Origin Castle, and the other part is going towards the rules set by the Night Emperor Trunsoest against him. Stealing is prohibited here, but as long as the power of stealing exceeds the power of order of the rules, this rule will no longer take effect. Amon's true form came to Klein's side, and when he planned to use all his strength to deal with Klein, the entire Origin Castle suddenly shook violently, and the Night Emperor Trunsoest and the rules he had arranged were directly excluded from the Origin Castle. Apart from that, Eamon still stayed in Source Castle. At this time, the loophole originally opened by Aemon in Source Castle was quickly repaired, and even Aemon could no longer leave easily. It is the consciousness of the Lord of Mysteries that has awakened. He is gradually taking control of Origin Castle. Aemon immediately guessed the reason for such a change. The Knight Emperor Trunsoest was sent out of the Source Castle because the extraordinary path he was on was not what the Lord of Mysteries needed. Now, Aemon and Klein have been trapped in the Source Castle by the Lord of Mysteries controlling the power of the Source Castle. The extraordinary characteristics of the three extraordinary paths of Thief, Apprentice, and Diviner have come together to meet the conditions for the Lord of Mysteries to awaken and return. What a bad time to wake up. Aemon chuckled, and actually chose to help Klein suppress the awakening of the Lord of Mysteries. If the Lord of Mysteries, consciousness is fully awakened, then both he and Klein will be losers. For him, the Lord of Mysteries can wake up, but he must awaken in Klein's body after he becomes the uniqueness of the fool who seizes Klein's body. In this way, he can bypass the Lord of Mysteries and become the new Lord of Mysteries, without having to bear the risk of the Lord of Mysteries awakening in his own body. Klein's condition is very bad, and his reason and mind may be devoured at any time. If Aemon hadn't helped, he would have been completely replaced by the Lord of Mysteries the moment the Lord of Mysteries, consciousness awakened. Now, his situation is like a small boat in two huge waves. One side is the huge waves raised by the Lord of Mysteries, and the other side is the huge wave wall created by Aemon. He was caught between these two forces. Although he didn't die on the spot, he was tossed up and down, and it was extremely dangerous. The changes in his mind were reflected in his body. His body was constantly torn apart and filled with transparent twisted worms. His facial features were sometimes clear, sometimes blurred, sometimes scary, sometimes blank, and sometimes slippery and twisted tentacles emerged. At this time, Klein felt a perpetual coldness all over his body. Except for his thoughts, everything else seemed to be frozen. An ancient and vicissitudes of life voice came from deep in his heart. Give up. Leave everything to me. This time I will not accommodate other source substances. This time I will stay awake and no longer be driven by instinct. I will not help the creatures you want to protect, but I will not hurt them. This is not out of my kindness, nor is it a promise I made to you, but they are too weak and not worth my attention at all. Leave it to me. This place will become a forbidden place for the outer gods. The familiar and unfamiliar whispers echoed in Klein's heart, making him want to give up. He knew that this was a temptation from the Lord of Mysteries, but his mind was far from clear as before. Now, every time he thought, he felt like walking barefoot through a swamp. Lord of Mysteries, your temptation with words is really disappointing. It turns out that you are not as invincible as I imagined. Amon's mocking voice came, suppressing the Lord of Mysteries, mumbling for a short time. You have the breath of God. After a whisper, a stronger wave stirred the entire Saphira Castle, and the Lord of Mysteries, consciousness awakened further. In just a moment, all of Amon's clones, including the clones entangled with the original witch outside Saphira Castle, exploded. Klein, who saw this scene, cursed inwardly. Aemon, you idiot, you have nothing to do to stimulate the Lord of Mysteries. Now it's over, the Lord of Mysteries, awakened consciousness can't be suppressed. Aemon didn't say anything, but just responded to this sudden change with a gloomy face. He didn't expect the Lord of Mysteries, consciousness to suddenly go berserk. The breath of God, does it refer to his father, the ancient sun god, or the original creator of the past? Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. Oh, that guy weird mystery is going berserk. God looked down at the nebula outside the Hall of Stars. Even with the cover of Saphira Castle, he could still see everything that was happening there. Asta heard the voice of gloating clearly in the Hall of Stars. From the scene just now, it can be seen that God did some tricks on the uniqueness of the thief, so that Aemon stimulated the Lord of Mystery, thus accelerating the awakening of the Lord of Mystery's consciousness. Aren't you going down to see your good friend? If I show up, Klein and Aemon will both perish in Saphira Castle. You and the Lord of Mystery really love each other deeply. Asta chuckled and teased. No way, I will always remember the existence that killed me. Is it the same for you? Now that the Lord of Mysteries has awakened, what happens next has nothing to do with me. God did not give Hasta another chance to ask. After he finished speaking, he left here and returned to the Chaos Sea in the God-forsaken land. What exactly does he want to do? Asta did not immediately intervene in the fight between Klein, Aemon, and the Lord of Mysteries, but thought about the intention of God's series of actions. For him, is it really acceptable to any ending? The Lord of Mysteries in Saphira Castle did not give Hasta too much time to think. The Lord of Mysteries, who suddenly awakened his consciousness, suppressed the consciousness of Klein and Eamon. Especially Klein, at this moment, his consciousness is like a small flame that can be blown out at any time. Death is never the end. Hasta sighed, and a ray of starlight accurately fell on Saphira Castle and merged into it silently. This was a backdoor that Klein had left for him, to prevent the Lord of Mysteries from awakening and losing control of the situation. The light of the stars fell on the Lord of Mysteries' consciousness, freezing his thoughts for a short time and putting him into a state of dormancy. This was the power of Hasta combined with the authority of the night goddess's night tranquility, which could allow the Lord of Mysteries' consciousness to fall into a short sleep. At the same time, Hasta sent down another ray of starlight to wipe out Klein's torn body. Death is not the end, miracles always exist. Klein did not die because of this. Instead, he used the power of the stars to get rid of the invasion of the Lord of Mysteries, awakening consciousness and regain his freedom. It was equivalent to Klein jumping out of the big dive vat of Eamon and the Lord of Mysteries for a short time. Now was his best chance to be promoted to Sequence 0 Fool. At this moment, Klein was equivalent to himself when he first came to the Honachus Mountains, a self who could try to be promoted to Sequence 0 Fool after digesting the Mystery Servant Potion. Relying on a resurrection after death, Klein completely reversed his state. The ritual for advancing to Sequence 0 Fool is fooling time, history, and fate once. Now, through this resurrection after death, he has successfully completed this promotion ritual. Because when he first took the potion to advance, he was in the identity of Antigonus, but now, after death, it was Klein, a Sequence 1 who had just digested the secret servant potion, who was resurrected. This was not his own idea, but inspiration from Antigonus's promotion method and Rassel's resurrection of the Black Emperor. In an instant, his body split and turned into a thin gray mist and dark liquid. The gray mist and the black liquid blended, and dense granulation like worms appeared on the surface, and then they intertwined into a translucent dark cloak. Under the cloak, there was no body, only darkness. A light door opened with a bang, and Amon's true body, wearing a pointed soft hat and a classic black robe, jumped out, trying to stop Klein. But he was one step too late after all, and he could only watch an illusory mask with blank facial features appear under the translucent dark cloak. As the mask outlined Klein's appearance with the characteristics of German Sparrow, Amon's mind suddenly became confused, as if his IQ was forcibly lowered. He stood there for a moment, not knowing what he should do next. Not only Eamon, but also the goddess of night and the god of knowledge and wisdom who were taking action in the kingdom of God also paused for a short time, and their minds fell into a brief blank. After a brief exchange, Rassel and the god of steam machinery both stopped talking, and they were hesitant to speak, as if they had lost what they wanted to say in an instant. What did I want to say to you just now? How do I know what you want to say? Then what did you want to say just now? I can't remember. Will of Backland just shook his mind for a while, and continued to spin the wheel of fate, forcibly delaying the steps of the ancient sun god who wanted to leave here. The fool is born, the ancient sun god whispered, and Will heard the voice, thankfully saying, fooling, it's really an aura that can lower people's IQ, fortunately I'm still far away from that. Ancient sun god, it seems that Eamon has failed, do you still want to continue fighting? Klein's promotion to the fool is just on the same track as Eamon. Will is also very clear about this, but he still smiled and said, even though he has the advantage, Eamon still let Klein complete the promotion. Now they have the same starting point, and Amon's failure is doomed. Do you know why God chose to stand on our side this time and help contain the stars? He probably doesn't want Klein, who is friendly with the stars, to become the new Lord of Mysteries. This is just one of his concerns. He has another purpose. What purpose? Will became interested, but the ancient sun god didn't say it clearly. Instead, he looked at the Hornachus Mountains in silence, and then imagined a clone to block Will, and his real body quickly descended on the kingdom of the god of knowledge and wisdom. The shadow curtain covered the kingdom of the god of knowledge and wisdom to prevent him from escaping from here. Without any words, he stretched out a palm to grab the god of knowledge and wisdom, trying to forcibly extract the uniqueness in the body of knowledge and wisdom. Although the god of knowledge and wisdom struggled hard, facing the ancient sun god at this moment, he still couldn't resist. A sound like the cry of a phoenix sounded, and the ancestor of the phoenix, Grey Carrie, turned into an phoenix that covered the sky and the sun and rushed over. The ancient sun god did not dodge or evade, and let the burning phoenix break through the shadow curtain and hit his chest. He just frowned, his eyes were cold, and he forcibly took out the uniqueness of the White Tower from the body of the god of knowledge and wisdom. At this time, the wheel of fate turned, trying to reverse the fate of the uniqueness of the White Tower being taken out, but the ancient sun god suddenly burst out with a chaotic and unknown breath, like a fog, forcibly blocking the change of fate. The uniqueness of the White Tower had just separated from the god of knowledge and wisdom, and was instantly accepted by the ancient sun god. So far, the ancient sun god has completely accepted the 5 extraordinary ways belonging to God, and only needs to accept the source of the chaos sea to become the real old day. Alas, the god of knowledge and wisdom sighed. Although he guessed that the ancient sun god would suddenly come, he still underestimated the ability of the ancient sun god to suppress him. In a short period of time, the uniqueness of the White Tower in his body was taken away, which was simply unimaginable. No, you just borrowed the power of the chaos sea. The god of knowledge and wisdom suddenly realized that the overwhelming strength of the ancient sun god just now was not like half of the old sun, but the full strength of the old sun. He then figured out why God suddenly disappeared from the stars, allowing the stars to free up their hands to help Klein suppress the consciousness of the Lord of Mysteries. It turned out that their target was him from the beginning. The reason why God helped the ancient sun god was to allow the ancient sun god to regain complete authority. The Lord of Mysteries was about to wake up and return, and God could not remain silent. Haha, your end will not be much better than mine. I'm waiting to enjoy your ending. The god of knowledge and wisdom had no idea of fighting, and decisively detonated his kingdom of God, allowing Grey Carey to take him away from here. Although he lost his uniqueness, the ancient sun god was unable to completely regain his authority. The ancient sun god did not speak, but just glanced at the god standing above the chaos sea, smiling at him. If Klein was the backup prepared by the Lord of Mysteries, then he was the container cultivated by God. God helped him because he was confident that he could defeat him with the help of the power of the chaos sea. Like Klein, he had no way out and could only push himself to the extreme and then fight God in the final battle. As for the outcome, he could not see the future. The fool was born. Eamon was stunned and saw Klein standing completely in front of him, smiling at him. It seems that I'm still on the same track as you. You'd better deal with the awakening consciousness of the Lord of Mysteries first. Eamon seemed not to care about Klein's promotion to Sequence 0 Fool. If I want to fight against the consciousness of the Lord of Mysteries, I still need your help. You think I'll help you? Yes, because once I fail, Origin Castle will fall into the hands of the Lord of Mysteries. Even if you escape from Source Castle today, the Lord of Mysteries will take away your power in the future. Klein looked at the original barrier. The kingdom of God at the crack is, just like the ancient sun god who always takes back his authority one by one. You're playing with fire. It's better than sitting around and waiting to die. Eamon took another serious look at Klein before making his request. He asked Klein to give him part of the control of Source Castle, otherwise he would not risk fighting the Lord of Mysteries with Klein. This is Origin Castle. Klein is the current owner of Origin Castle. The Lord of Mysteries is the former owner of Origin Castle. Only he is an unrelated outsider. He doesn't want to sacrifice himself to fulfill Klein's destiny. Klein's decisive attitude made Amon's expression serious. He thought that Klein would bargain with him. At this time, if we are still bargaining, it would be too disrespectful of the Lord of Mystery, right? As soon as Klein finished speaking, the entire Origin Castle began to shake violently. The consciousness of the Lord of Mysteries got rid of the influence of the stars, reawakened, and began to try to take full control of the Origin Castle. Time is limited. Oh, I hope you won't regret it. Eamon agreed to Klein's bold and crazy suggestion. When Amon's consciousness also joined in, Klein decisively opened up part of the control of Source Castle to Eamon. At the beginning, Klein had 100% control of Origin Castle. After the Lord of Mysteries awakened twice, he took away about 40% of it. This is an almost quantitative value, not a real situation. After Eamon joined, Klein gave Eamon 20% of the control. Eamon is a dual-path true god, and he is a single-path Sequence 0. If they were evenly divided, he would immediately become the weakest of the three. If Eamon doesn't follow martial ethics and gets rid of him first and then confronts the Lord of Mysteries one-on-one, then he will suffer a big loss. In the three-party battle, Eamon and Klein teamed up to fight against the consciousness of the Lord of Mysteries. Although they occupied more control over Source Castle, they were still unable to do anything to the Lord of Mysteries. On the contrary, they were still at a disadvantage. Outside, the ancient sun god had withdrawn his scattered power, allowing the night goddess and will to help Klein suppress the consciousness of the Lord of Mysteries. As for the ancient sun god being blocked by the Palace of Stars at the moment, Hasta sat in the Palace of Stars and said calmly, "You should not take away the last piece of the White Tower's uniqueness from the God of Knowledge and Wisdom. That is also yours. The last resort. There must be a result." The ancient sun god retracted his gaze and turned to look at the struggle between the source castles. "The instinct of gathering is an irresistible temptation, especially when I find that my strength is not enough. The presence of the God of Knowledge and Wisdom is the greatest temptation of power. You can't beat God. Is this a prophecy from the stars?" "Yes," Hasta answered firmly. He did not see the future outcome between God and the ancient sun god, but God's thoughts and calculations were definitely higher than those of the ancient sun god. He dared to let the ancient sun god take away the authority of the God of Knowledge and Wisdom, and he must have the confidence to win. The ancient sun god was silent for a while and said, "Actually, a long time ago, I should have taken the human side as the leader. Maybe in that case, many things would be different. God was born in the sea of chaos. He is a natural old creature, but you are not. When you give up your greatest advantage and choose to get closer to God, the ending between you is already doomed." The ancient sun god was silent again, and after a while he said, "The weak Klein chose to fight when facing such a terrifying existence as the Lord of Mysteries. How could I choose to give up?" There was a touch of sarcasm on Hasta's lips. "Sometimes I wonder why your path becomes more and more extreme. You are supposed to be the light that illuminates the end of the world. Because of your appearance." The ancient sun god looked at Hasta in the Hall of Stars. "If you were me, how would you face such a heterogeneous existence as the stars? Uncontrollable variables, aliens who don't know what the outcome will be. Isn't destroying him the best option?" Pity. Hasta did not continue to discuss this topic with the ancient sun god. The focus of everything today is the Lord of Mysteries. No matter what God's purpose is, he doesn't want the Lord of Mysteries to wake up completely. At the worst, he wants to let both the Lord of Mysteries and Klein fall into deep sleep. As for Amon, after Klein was promoted to Sequence 0 Fool, he had lost his last chance to succeed. Even if he was still alive, it was time to head to the stars. At that time, I will be waiting for his visit deep in the starry sky. With the help of the goddess of night, the Lord of Mysteries fell into sleep many times, buying opportunities and time for Klein and Amon, while will constantly use the authority of the Key of Light to correct and improve Klein's fate, giving him a greater chance to walk in the most correct fate. As for Amon, when the ancient sun god did not take action, his end was doomed. When the Lord of Mysteries' consciousness was gradually suppressed, the thief's uniqueness in Amon's body suddenly moved out of Amon's control, and suddenly broke away from Amon's body and flew in front of the Lord of Mysteries. "Mystery, remember, this is my gift to you, you lose, ha ha ha." God's triumphant laughter sounded, and the thief's uniqueness was instantly grasped and contained by the Lord of Mysteries. God. After an ancient murmur, the Lord of Mysteries' consciousness awakened and returned. Amon, who was severely injured by the loss of the thief's uniqueness, became the most priority target for the awakened Lord of Mysteries. "You can't hold on to the control of Saphira Castle that others have given you." The Lord of Mysteries took back the control of Saphira Castle from Amon with just one sentence, and at the same time manipulated the power of Saphira Castle, trying to tear Amon's body apart and extract the uniqueness of the apprentice from his body. Amon retreated in time and used the Fate Trojan to plant a virus backdoor vulnerability in the Lord of Mysteries. At the same time, he split thousands of clones and continued to steal from the Lord of Mysteries, trying to steal back the uniqueness of the thief. Fooling. Klein also fought for the control of Saphira Castle while helping Amon give the Lord of Mysteries a halo of intelligence. Sleep well. Restart your destiny. The goddess of night and will also took action at the same time, trying to change the situation. "Now that I am awake, I will not fall asleep again." The voice of the Lord of Mysteries came from Klein's body, and at the same time, Klein's body split into two halves, one half is Klein, and the other half is the former Lord of Mysteries. At this moment, the Lord of Mysteries seemed to have recovered all his past memories. He was no longer in a daze like before, acting only on instinct. You should go to fight God. Hasta knew that he had to take action. If he delayed any longer, the Lord of Mysteries would definitely recover his full consciousness and return. Unless you want God's calculation to succeed. Hasta did not know what God's calculation was, but he suddenly intervened in Amon and helped the Lord of Mysteries. He must have his own plan. If you can always stick to your human side, maybe you won't be completely swallowed by God. This is the last advice Hasta left for the ancient sun god. At this moment, I saw the future, an era belonging to the stars. The ancient sun god smiled, as if relieved, and as if suddenly enlightened. When a golden sun sank towards the god-forsaken land and hit the chaos sea deep underground, all light was swallowed up. When Hasta arrived outside Source Castle, grey mist continued to gather around the entire Source Castle, forming grey walls, trying to prevent the power of the stars from penetrating. Are you afraid, Lord of Mysteries? It's more customary for me to call you Fusheng Xuanwang Tianzun. Klein immediately sensed Tianzun's wariness about the coming of the stars. He seems to know that the authority and power of the stars will most likely change the outcome, and wants to use the power of Source Castle crazily to block the stars from Source Castle. Tianzun, what you fear is what I long for. Klein shook the Source Castle with all his strength and barely opened a passage that could pass into the Source Castle. When the light of the stars penetrated from the grey mist, the consciousness of the Lord of Mysteries was lost for a moment, and then he launched a crazy counterattack, as if he wanted to completely control the Source Castle before the power of the stars intervened. Both Klein and Eamon understood that this was the most critical moment. Eamon suddenly pulled away from the fight, leaving Klein to face the Lord of Mysteries alone. After just a face-to-face meeting, half of Klein's body exploded, and his entire body exploded. There is only the last bit of human consciousness left and it will be destroyed at any time. The more critical the moment, the more careful you must be. People's hearts can't bear to be measured, let alone me. Eamon whispered, taking the opportunity to take away the uniqueness of the fool in Klein's body, and then took advantage of the Lord of Mysteries to be affected by the power of the stars. Interfered by it, he stole crazily with his clones, and finally stole the uniqueness of the thief that should belong to him from the Lord of Mysteries. Since then, the uniqueness of the three extraordinary paths of diviner, thief, and apprentice has been in Amon's hands. Although I have never wanted to face the Lord of Mysteries directly, it is better to give it a try than to fail completely. Klein was too weak to speak, and the Lord of Mysteries attacked Eamon even more frantically, as if he wanted to take back the authority that should belong to him from Eamon. Too late. Eamon did not hesitate, and directly forcibly merged the uniqueness of the fool and the uniqueness of the thief, hoping to make himself half the Lord of Mysteries, and then compete with the Lord of Mysteries for the final Source Castle. Stupid. The Lord of Mysteries suddenly regained his composure from the madness, with undisguised sarcasm in his tone. The closer you are to success, the easier it is to relax your vigilance, and you are all like this. Do you think you can steal the thief's uniqueness from me just by stealing? That was just something I gave to you on purpose so that you could collect all the uniqueness and force your promotion. After the Lord of Mysteries finished speaking, half of Klein's body that he had originally controlled collapsed to the ground, and then his voice came out from Amon's body. He is the awakening container I cultivated, and you are no exception. Haha, do you think I don't know this? Eamon sneered, this is the last fight between you and me. Hasta, who had entered through the passage opened by Klein, just watched Eamon and the Lord of Mysteries fight each other. He can understand Amon's thoughts. When the power of the stars intervenes, if Eamon does not take decisive measures, he will inevitably become a stepping stone for Klein, and the final outcome will be failure. It would be better to kick Klein out first and then have the final battle with the Lord of Mysteries. Madness. This time it was Will who spoke out. He looked at Klein, who was on the verge of death, with a smile and said, let them fight each other, survive in the cracks, and survive from death. This is the best path to your destiny. The power of the Night Goddess has also seeped into Source Castle. Except for Eamon and the Lord of Mysteries, who are still competing with each other, the situation has become tilted. Even though Eamon already possesses the uniqueness of three extraordinary paths at this time, it is still difficult to compete with the awakening consciousness of the Lord of Mysteries. Let's begin. Hasta motioned for Will and the Night Goddess to take action together. Return to position reverse. Hasta used the power of the stars to forcefully suppress the active consciousness of the Lord of Mysteries, and let his consciousness gradually tend to an unawakened state. The night brings eternal dreams, and everything will fall into sleep. The goddess of the night whispered softly, belonging to the authority of the night, causing the consciousness of Eamon and the Lord of Mysteries to enter a brief sleep and dream. The grafting of destiny. Will transformed into a mercury snake, connected end to end, forming a wheel of destiny that emitted milky white light. The key of light floated at the center of the wheel of destiny, like a key that turned and opened destiny. Under the intervention of the key of light, the fates of Eamon and Klein were interchanged. Originally, Klein's fate of being seriously injured and on the verge of death was grafted onto Eamon, and Amon's fate of being the only one among the three extraordinary paths was grafted onto Klein. In a twist of fate, Klein went from being on the verge of death to becoming half the master of mysteries who uniquely possesses the three extraordinary paths. Amon was seriously injured and on the verge of death, completely losing hope of competing for the master of mysteries. Haha, you guys are really amazing. Amon just said with emotion. He did not lose to Klein, nor did he lose to the Lord of Mysteries, but he lost to foreign aids such as the stars, the goddess of the night, and the wheel of fortune. Russell once said, if you are in a good position, you will get a lot of help, but if you are in a bad position, you will get little help. If it weren't for your bad temper, there wouldn't be a hidden presence on your side today. Will sneered unceremoniously. Amon didn't say anything more, but left sadly. Is this really what Russell said? Klein, who was completely in control of his body, said with a smile. There is a saying that goes like this. If you can think of a very philosophical saying, but it is not credible enough to be recognized by others, you can attribute it to Russell and make it his famous saying. At this time, the Lord of Mysteries, whose consciousness was about to be dispersed by the reversal of the return position, caused the entire Source Castle to shake. Then, the voice of the Lord of Mysteries came from Klein's body. The power of the stars is indeed powerful, but unfortunately, you don't seem to be in a complete state now, and you can't completely reverse the process of my awakening. You can try a few more times. Hasta continued to perform the reversal of the return position several times with an expressionless face, but each time, he could not completely solve the awakening consciousness of the Lord of Mysteries. He has always existed in Klein's body. It seems that my road can only go here for the time being. Klein gestured to Hasta, telling Hasta not to try again. I think I need a long sleep. Klein looked at the goddess of night and smiled. I need a long and beautiful dream. Well, I miss the era we were in. Will, thank you for your blessing. I think my future will be bright with your blessing. Klein's last sight fell on Hasta. Although you are not from our era, I always think you are, because you have the same nostalgia for that era as we do, and you also have the remnants of that era on you. Klein moved his lips, as if he wanted to say something else, but the consciousness of the Lord of Mystery in his body came back again, and he had no time to continue chatting. After sending Hasta, the goddess of night, and Will away, Klein sat at the head of the bronze table in his most original appearance, tapping the table with his right index finger, and the whole Source Castle echoed with a rhythmic sound. When the sound stopped, everything fell into eternal sleep. In the dream of sleep, the life that had been lost was continued again, slowly moving towards a future that had never existed. Return and reverse. In the God-forsaken land, above the Chaos Sea, Hasta used the first blasphemous slate he had ever obtained to stir up some of the power of the Chaos Sea, allowing the power of the stars to invade smoothly and suppress God's consciousness. Although he did not like the actions of the ancient sun god, he hated God, a troublemaker, even more. What a pity. Hasta only used the power of return and reversal once, and the Chaos Sea quickly disappeared from under the giant king's court and fled. It can be seen that God still has the upper hand in the Chaos Sea at present. The God who had been prepared for a long time was not comparable to the Lord of Mystery who had just awakened his consciousness. After solving the problem here, Hasta returned to the Hall of Stars and looked around the real world within the initial barrier. The Lord of Mystery and God both fell into deep sleep, and Will, who held the source of the Key of Light, was still on his side. He was temporarily no longer threatened within the initial barrier. Now, it was indeed the era of the stars that the ancient sun god said before he left. Although Hasta has not yet been promoted to Sequence 0, he is the most dazzling existence within the initial barrier. The stars, hanging high in the starry sky, overlooking everything in this world. In the Hall of Stars, Hasta was also thinking about why things suddenly came to this point. According to his original plan, the worst-case scenario for the Lord of Mysteries, awakening was that Klein and the Lord of Mysteries would both fall asleep like in the original work, and would not wake up until the end of the doomsday. The ending between God and the ancient sun god was something he had never expected. Logically speaking, just based on his words, it is impossible for the ancient sun god to fight to the death with God at this time, but now both of them are sinking in the sea of chaos. Did the ancient sun god suddenly wake up and want to fulfill himself? Or did he see a different future at that point in time? It is difficult to see all of the future, but at a specific point in time, you can get a glimpse of the future. This is a better explanation for the behavior of the ancient sun god. Belonging to the age of the stars. Hasta whispered, suddenly feeling a little boring. He had no idea of conquering the world, nor did he have the ambition to become the king of gods like the ancient sun god. There is still some time before the end, so it would be nice to have a quiet day. Hastur left the Hall of Stars and returned to the southern continent. Outside the starry sky, the fallen mother goddess, the mother tree of desire, the superstar master, the ring of fate and other outer gods all witnessed the outcome of this chaotic war with their own eyes. They didn't expect that the stars would miss it in the end. But is this really a mistake? Maybe this was the plan of the stars from the beginning. It was really scary. God and the Lord of Mysteries both fell into a deep sleep with their competitors and awakening vessels, not knowing when they would wake up and return. Within the current initial barrier, the stars dominate. In the future, it will be very difficult for the outer gods to descend within the initial barrier again. It can be said that the current Earth is already a restricted area in the past for the outer gods in the starry sky. Secret. The fallen mother goddess roared angrily and disappeared, no longer staying outside the initial barrier. Even at that critical moment, the Lord of Mysteries still did not open the seal of the western continent and still sealed the remaining source matter, which undoubtedly cut off their thoughts. It turned out to be such a situation. It seems that the stars will not need our help for a long time. The mother tree of desire sees clearly that in the next era of stars, even if they can still move freely through clones within the initial barrier, it is no longer as important as before. Following the rules is the key to their survival in the era of stars. The Jinn just looked at the initial barrier that blocked his entry, sighed, and disappeared. He suddenly missed the days before returning to the starry sky. At least it wouldn't be so boring. Backland, Will was undoubtedly happy. In order to reward himself for his hard work, he specially changed into a new set of clothes and bought 10 kinds of the latest ice cream with different flavors to reward himself. While enjoying the delicious ice cream, I thought about the changes in the coming times. Annoying existences such as God, the Lord of Mysteries, the ancient sun god, and Amun either fell into deep sleep, were unable to escape, or had lost their powerful strength. Today's new era is already an era of shining stars, and as a being who has contacted and invested in the stars early, the future will definitely be smooth sailing. Now he only needs to stay in Backland, while being filial to his parents and accommodating them. Key delight. There is still quite a while before the end, and comfortable days are waving to him. So good. Will sighed and continued to taste the latest ice cream. In the yellow church, when Mrs. Lisa listened to the oracle from the stars again, her face was full of excitement, because the oracle only said one short sentence: the future is an era that belongs to the stars. This sentence gave her great courage, and also gave the entire Wangyi church a stabilizing needle. She first announced that the Yellow Clothes Church had officially changed its name to the Church of the Stars, and then began to call on the yellow-clothed monks to go out to preach and strengthen the faith of the stars. Regarding the missionary behavior of the Church of the Stars, the Church of the Goddess of Night and the Church of Steam and Machinery have all chosen to back down. Today, it is no longer an era dominated by the 6 righteous gods, but an era dominated by stars. Far away in the Star Sea Kingdom on the Rosid Islands, Bernadette also received relevant revelations and knew the general direction of the future era. With the protection of the stars, the Kingdom of Star Sea has completely become a country that can stand on par with established kingdoms such as the Kingdom of Loan, or even surpass it. The day belongs to the era of stars, and the day has come. Bernadette came to the balcony on the 2nd floor of the castle and looked up at the starry sky above her head that seemed to be getting brighter and brighter, her eyes flickering with the light of the stars. She had also thought about whether there would be an era unique to the stars, but she never thought that this day would come so early. Is this just luck, or is it some kind of symbol? Is it a good thing or the peace before everything collapses? While Bernadette was meditating, Zio and 4C were invited here. You have grown a lot in the past 2 years, and you are fully capable of being on your own. Bernadette put away her thoughts and glanced at Zio and 4C one by one, with undisguised relief in her eyes. Shu's eyes were clear and majestic, and he had the aura of a big man who was in a high position and acted upright. Although 4C was still lazy, there was already a kind of wisdom deep in his eyes that could see through the world and contained it. No, I didn't. I'm still far away. 4C wanted to answer this way, but it was obvious that Zio didn't speak, so she didn't rush to say it. It's time for the Star Sea Kingdom to let the kingdoms on the land recognize our status. Timely establishment of diplomatic relations is the cornerstone of peace. Bernadette turned her eyes in a circle and landed on Zio. So, I need someone to represent the Star Sea Kingdom. Envoys will be sent to major kingdoms, starting with the Belang Empire in the southern continent. Okay. Zio just nodded calmly, and 4C secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Keishu raised the corner of his mouth slightly and said, "4C, I remember that you traveled around the world to play the role of a traveler, and you have a deep understanding of the customs of many places. Should you come with me? Quote, just think of it as doing me a favor." Before 4C could refuse, he was blocked by Zio. "This is indeed a good suggestion. You two can take care of each other on the road. When you encounter danger, 4C's ability can also save the day." Bernadette also helped. Quote. 4C could only sigh heavily in her heart. She knew it was not appropriate to go out tonight. There are happy people, there are lost people, there are winners and there are losers. In the place abandoned by the gods, looking at the last ray of the sun that had been swallowed up by the sea of chaos, Aemon closed his eyes and stood silently. It wasn't until a voice came that he opened his eyes and looked at the visitor. "As proud as you are, you finally taste the taste of failure. Tisk, this is really a gratifying thing." The speaker was Medici, who had not been seen for a long time. He had the same flamboyant red hair as in the past. "I thought you were eaten by the original witch. What a pity. If he chooses to send me out at that time, maybe he can really get help from the original witch." Medici turned his gaze towards the direction of the giant king's court. Perhaps at that time, he was already guided by the humanity of the true creator. "Does it matter? Of course, at least my loyalty is reciprocated." Aemon was silent for a while, then stood up from the boulder he was sitting on, patted the stone chips on his clothes and said, "It's time for you to leave." "It's time for you to leave too. You came here specially to see me off. Stop dreaming, little crow, I just happened to be passing by." After Medici finished speaking, he quickly left here. Soon, the aura of the original witch filled the air from afar. Risking the danger, just to send the former master off, why bother? Aemon watched the original witch chasing Medici motionlessly. He was now just a sequence 2 Fate Trojan. How could an earthly angel have the ability to stop the original witch's steps? The feeling of being weak was indeed different. He could only comfort himself in this way. After leaving the giant king's court, he walked along the place where the ancient sun god walked out, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, and then cast his eyes on the starry sky again. Although he was not used to the view that only the starry sky was lofty and the stars overlooked the world, he knew that he would eventually need to go beyond the starry sky. After a long silence, he put away his bored arrogance and ambition, and went to the starry sky with a calm heart. When he was about to cross the initial barrier and leave, the stars shone brightly, and the starry hall shrouded in the depths of the nebula appeared in front of him with an ancient and majestic posture. Amon's mouth curled up with a smile. "Stars, did you come here to laugh at me on purpose?" "Not really, ridiculing you won't bring me any spiritual or mental pleasure." "Oh, are the stars so generous?" Aemon smiled even more. "I thought the stars wanted to slap me to the ground and not let me get close to the starry sky." Provocative words always make people want to beat you up. If the stars want to take action, I can only wait for death. It seems that you haven't recognized yourself yet. You think that you put on a relaxed look, just put down your remaining little pride and face it calmly. Asta shook his head and said, "But the more you do this, the more it proves that your arrogance remains." "Did the stars come here specifically to preach?" Aemon showed an indifferent expression. Asta, sitting in the Hall of Stars, just waved his hand, and the chain of stars turned into prison chains to lock all parts of Amon's body, depriving him of his extraordinary abilities, and then opened a door, and Leonard and Pales appeared here. "Just don't beat him to death," Asta said calmly. Pales, who had been holding back his anger towards Aemon, turned into a strong man in front of Amon's surprised eyes, rushed up to hold Aemon down, and then punched him hard. "Damn, I've wanted to beat you up like this for a long time." Pales cursed and punched more urgently. Leonard was still instinctively afraid of Aemon at first, but seeing Pales's bravery, he also joined the team to beat Aemon. "Old man, you can't do this, it's too gentle. You shouldn't hit his butt, you should hit his face, especially the monocle he wears, which has given me nightmares." For such a fight, Aemon just mocked. "Pales, is this what you can do? It's so boring, haha, being able to beat you up is the greatest pleasure in my life." Pales said, punching Amon's mouth corner crooked, and then smashing Amon's monocle with another punch. Although it was just ordinary punches and kicks that could not cause any substantial damage to Aemon, Pales and Leonard still had a lot of fun beating him. Asta, who was watching this scene quietly, noticed that Will, who was not far away, was also secretly looking here. He did not stop him, and Will soon joined in and kicked a few times in the chaos. Then Russell also came after hearing the news. He stood aside and excitedly rubbed his hands for a while, and then joined the melee of beating Eamon with a roar. Not far away, the god of steam and machinery was also watching secretly. It seemed that he had already made some moves, but he was embarrassed to take this opportunity to attack. Hastur closed his eyes slightly, pretending that he saw nothing. Ha ha ha, it's so lively. How can I be missing? Medici, who came out of nowhere, kicked Amon's butt hard like a gust of wind, and then quickly disappeared. After a while, the original witch also came here. Seeing the chaotic situation here, he was stunned for a moment, and then temporarily gave up the idea of chasing Medici. I have always wanted to see what Eamon would look like if he were a woman. The original witch whispered, and seeing that the stars had no intention of stopping him, he exerted his power and directly turned Eamon into a witch wearing a loose black robe, charming and touching, and even her breasts grew bigger, and the characteristics of women in all aspects were very obvious. The original melee stopped immediately, and Leonard, Pales, Will, and Russell circled around the witch Eamon for a few circles, and after a few comments. Tisk, I didn't expect Eamon to still have some charm after becoming a witch, especially those eyes, which reveal the stubbornness of not wanting to surrender, making people want to conquer her. It's really good. Look at her figure, with a big butt and a protruding front and back. It's easy to give birth. It's rare. Emperor Rissel, aren't you excited at all? This is a witch. Get lost. Rissel had a dark face and kicked Leonard, who was talking too much. Pallas smiled and said, little guy, didn't you also date a witch? Leonard, who was exposed for his dark history, immediately shut up and stopped talking. Finally, Rissel shouted to the original witch, let's turn her back to her original appearance, otherwise I'm embarrassed to continue beating her. The original witch smiled slightly, took back her authority, let Eamon return to his original appearance, then bowed to the starry sky, and disappeared into the darkness. Those who have grudges take revenge, and those who have no grudges vent their hatred. The chaos ended half an hour later. Eamon, who had recovered his strength, just calmly conjured up a crystal monocle and put it on calmly, and then patted the messy footprints on his clothes with his hand. Do the stars have such bad taste? It's okay. It's boring that they can be so satisfied with just this. You can continue to maintain your high profile, and they can also maintain their simple fun. Asta said and disappeared, leaving Eamon alone standing on the edge of the initial barrier. Stars, your indifference is the greatest contempt for me. Eamon murmured with a complicated expression, then crossed the initial barrier and entered the starry sky. After experiencing several consecutive turmoil in the Fasak Empire, the chaos here gradually calmed down. At present, the Church of the Goddess of Night and the Church of the Stars are responsible for preaching and maintaining peace here. But no matter how violent the previous turmoil was, it did not affect the northernmost ice field, which is close to the pole and has the special scenery of polar night and polar day. In the vast snowfield, on the coast near the sea, in a small house carved out of ice, a whale oil lamp was lit. The bright light dispelled the darkness in the ice house, and also dispelled the cold here. Azek sat on the ice bench, put the letter paper on a white bear skin spread flat on the table, reached out and touched the skeleton messenger who was lying on the corner of the table, dipped a little ink, and began to write. Klein, I have received your letter. Please forgive me for living alone in the polar ice field and enjoying the tranquility of nature when you need help the most. Believe me, sleeping is not a bad thing, because I have many related experiences. The moments when I really got peace in my life were all in those buried years of sleeping. Only by sleeping can I not worry about losing my memory, not suffer from recalling the past, and I have really rested. I hope you can take this opportunity to rest for a while like me, and keep your spirits up so that you can face a better self in the future. During the time you sleep, I will leave the polar region. Icefield, travel around the world, I will share with you some interesting things I encounter along the way in the form of a letter. Quote, when you wake up, you will travel to every corner of the world with me. After writing the letter, Azek looked at the skeleton messenger who was trembling and holding a gold coin, and smiled, take it, this is your fortune, and it is also a prepayment for you. Only when he wakes up, your letter delivery work can come to an end. Then, you will also get real freedom. Azek handed the written letter to the skeleton messenger, who nodded, swallowed the gold coin into his stomach, and left with the letter. Soon after it left, Azek carried his bag, held a cane, followed by a snow wolf he accidentally rescued in this ice field, and walked towards the distance. This is destined to be a long journey. Mr. Fool has fallen into deep sleep. This is something that all members of the Tarot Club know. But the Tarot Club is still there, and still maintains the habit of holding a Tarot Club every 2 weeks. Before Mr. Fool fell into deep sleep, he had told all members of the Tarot Club that the Tarot Club would continue to exist and would always exist. He also said that if he wanted to wake him up from deep sleep faster and maintain the operation of the Tarot Club, it would be extremely useful. For this reason, even if Mr. Fool is still in deep sleep, the Tarot Club members have the ability to enter the Grey Fog for meetings. Today is Monday, and it is the time point for the first Tarot Club to be held since Mr. Fool fell into deep sleep. In a quiet suburban manor in the southern continent, Audrey sat in front of the windowsill with a restless heart, while Susie lay quietly at the door, occasionally looking into the room to prevent anything from happening. A Tarot Club without Mr. Fool. It's hard to imagine what it would be like. Audrey sighed, looking at the clock on the wall, which was gradually approaching the time for the Tarot Club. She closed the window and went to bed. She simply recited Mr. Fool's honorific name in her heart. She came to the gray space as usual. In front of her was still a bronze table that could accommodate 22 seats. What was different from the past was that Mr. Fool's mysterious and ancient figure was no longer at the head of the bronze table. Today was a Tarot Club without Mr. Fool. Audrey did not greet as usual, but waited for all the members of the Tarot Club to come to the meeting. Mr. Hanged Man, Mr. Vampire, Little Sun, Miss Magician, Ms. Hermit, Mr. Moon. The figures that did not appear, except Mr. Fool, Mr. World did not appear either. When Mr. Fool explained these things, Mr. World had not appeared. As a devout believer of Mr. Fool, he should have a task secretly arranged by Mr. Fool. All the members of the Tarot Club were silent, like the grey fog that was almost stagnant. No one had any experience in how to hold a Tarot Club without Mr. Fool presiding over it. Even Alger, who was always knowledgeable, a senior member, and the Pope of the Church of Poseidon, did not speak at the first time. After about 3 minutes of silence, Audrey spoke first. Everyone, I think when we come to the Tarot Club again in the future, we will use these 3 minutes as the limit to pray for Mr. Fool. What do you think of this proposal? 3 minutes to pray for Mr. Fool. After a little thought, the members of the Tarot Club agreed to the suggestion made by Miss Justice. In the days without Mr. Fool, such a session is both a remembrance of Mr. Fool and a kind of gratitude. Perhaps this can also help Mr. Fool wake up from his slumber faster. Now let's move on to the next session. Audrey did not deliberately show herself, nor did she want to become the future leader of the Tarot Club. She just expressed some of her own opinions. But some words and actions always make people think that she is the temporary leader of the Tarot Club after Mr. Fool. At least, that's what Alger thought in his heart. He had this idea at the beginning, but he didn't put it into action in the end. Mr. Fool has just fallen asleep. If there is a chaos of power struggle within the Tarot Club now, it will be the greatest disrespect to Mr. Fool. Little Sun, Emlyn, and Leonard didn't notice the atmosphere that the Tarot Club has already emerged slightly, or they didn't care at all. Furs saw some signs, but she stood firmly on the side of Miss Justice. There was no way. Miss Justice was Miss Audrey, and Mr. Haster's fiancé. These two relationships alone were enough for her to stand on the side of Miss Justice without thinking. Catalia saw this sign most accurately and thoroughly. She just glanced at the Hanged Man and roughly guessed what he was thinking in his heart. From her own perspective, the Tarot Club, which lost Mr. Fool, can adopt a democratic voting system in the short term, but in the future, there will still need to be a temporary person in charge. Only in this way can an organization go further. She has joined the Tarot Club for a relatively short time and is a latecomer. She does not expect to become the temporary person in charge of the Tarot Club. Among the current members of the Tarot Club, only Miss Justice and Mr. Hanged Man are more suitable candidates. If she really has to choose, she will stand on the side of Miss Justice. Miss Justice, as her name suggests, her style of doing things is completely trustworthy, and she will not deviate from the original intention of the Tarot Club. Except for not being very fond of managing things and being a little naive, she is the most suitable candidate. As for Mr. Hanged Man, perhaps his long-term career at sea has caused many flaws in his character. He will pay more attention to material interests such as power, wealth and reputation. This may not be a disadvantage, but in comparison, she naturally prefers Miss Justice's temporary leadership. More importantly, she does not think that Mr. Hanged Man is capable and qualified to be above her. Our blood clan's ancestor, Lady Lilith, recently issued an oracle, which roughly means that all dangers have passed and the future will be a period of peace. When talking about the current situation, Emlyn expressed his opinion. Peace is indeed a good thing for this world, Alger said with emotion. Leonard smiled and said, the future will be an era that belongs to the stars. Yes, the future belongs to the stars. Fur suppressed his excitement and tried to speak in a calm tone. Mr. Fool had always had a friendly relationship with the stars before he fell asleep. Now that Mr. Fool is asleep, I believe that in this era of stars, the light of the stars will also bless each of us. The stars are also one of the three gods we believe in Silver City. Derek also spoke. I believe that the future will be a peaceful era worth looking forward to. Catalia also nodded. After talking about the current situation on the continent, the Tarot Club discussed for a while, and the topic soon returned to the future direction of the Tarot Club. When Mr. Fool was asleep, he did not arrange the future direction of the Tarot Club, but handed the future of the Tarot Club to each of them. Let them decide the future fate of the Tarot Club themselves. This is a good intention, but it also leaves a lot of problems. Today, the Tarot Club is no longer an unknown weak organization because of Mr. Fool, but a powerful secret organization second only to the Orthodox churches such as the Church of the Goddess of Night and the Church of the Stars. It can be said that the influence of the Tarot Club on the real world is growing. A growing organization naturally needs a route forward and a temporary person in charge, or a clearer set of rules and regulations. The original intention of the Tarot Club was just to help each other among members, and there was no other idea. Audrey frowned slightly. She and Mr. Hangman were the first members of the Tarot Club to be summoned here, and witnessed how the Tarot Club came to its current position step by step. It's easy to say that you should keep yourself out of trouble, but the influence of the Tarot Club is getting bigger and bigger, and it is inevitable that you need to contact other secret organizations or Orthodox churches. We really need a clearer action program. Catalia took a deep look at Miss Justice, who had no determination or ideas in this regard. Audrey frowned, and she understood the meaning of Ms. Hermit's words. In the past, when Mr. Fool was here, he would make decisions on any major issues. They only needed to follow Mr. Fool's will and do their own things. But now that Mr. Fool is sleeping, it's like a country has lost a monarch who can stabilize the kingdom and issue orders. Although this metaphor is not very appropriate, the meaning is the same. There are currently 7 members of the Tarot Club. Perhaps we can adopt a voting system, one person, one vote, specifically to solve some issues that the Tarot Club encounters that require decision-making. Audrey pondered for a while and put forward her own ideas. What do you think? This is a good suggestion, at least it is suitable for the current situation. But Catalia felt that she should speed up the process of organizational structure a little bit. At least she had to let Miss Justice understand that the stable development of an organization cannot rely on the moral standards of each member. It is good to express your own opinions, but in the long run it will inevitably lead to the phenomenon of forming cliques, which is not in line with the original intention of the establishment of the Tarot Club. Catalia said calmly. Of course, I think the voting system is not bad at present, but it can't last long. After speaking, seeing that other members of the Tarot Club frowned slightly and looked unnatural, she explained a little bit. I don't have any idea of fighting for power and profit, but I am worried about the future development of the Tarot Club. Although Catalia's views were consistent with what Alger thought in his heart, his face was still not good. He had already seen it. The Hermit Lady wanted Miss Justice to take the position and let Miss Justice serve as the temporary head of the Tarot Club, so she said these words to remind Miss Justice. But he said nothing, just looked at Miss Justice, wanting to hear what she thought. Little Sun seemed to be aware of the different atmosphere. Sitting upright, even his expression became serious. Emlyn didn't care about these things at all. He was thinking about whether the vampires who had gone through difficult times still needed him as a savior. Leonard heard the key and his eyes fell on Miss Justice. Ms. Hermit, I believe you said this because you are worried about the future of the Tarot Club. Audrey showed an apologetic expression to Ms. Hermit, but I don't think the current Tarot Club has reached the point you said. Each of us is a member of the Tarot Club. There is no high or low status. One person, one vote. I think this is the most fair and reasonable mechanism at present. We should not set limits for ourselves in advance for the future that has not yet happened. The Tarot Club belongs to each of us. Catalia smiled and said, Ms. Justice said it well. I thought things were too complicated. In his heart, he was thinking that only a person with such character can lead the Tarot Club to a better future. After a brief discussion, the basic framework of the future of the Tarot Club was confirmed. The voting system is centered on voting. If there is a major event, you can come to the Grey Fog in advance to notify. The Tarot Club will still hold meetings every 2 weeks. The conversation has already started, and Furs also put forward her own ideas. What if you want to recommend new members to join the Tarot Club? She has always wanted to bring Zio to the Tarot Club, but there has never been a suitable opportunity. Now that Mr. Fool is in sleep, she wants to try a little. Investigation, voting. Catalya's answer was concise. Second, Leonard and Emlyn agreed. During the period when Mr. Fool is in sleep, I think our Tarot Club should not expand. Audrey expressed a different opinion. I also think that new members should not be allowed to join the Tarot Club at this stage. Yeah, I think so too. Little Sun agreed with Alger's opinion. Is that so? Furs showed a little disappointment on her face. Catalya smiled and said, it seems that the result of this vote is 4-3. Quote question mark quote. A question mark appeared on Furs' forehead, and the other members of the Tarot Club looked at Catalya in confusion, but after thinking for a while, they understood what Catalya meant by 4-3. Quote. Emlyn lowered his head silently. He just said it casually to avoid appearing to have no presence. Audrey and Alger hesitated to speak, but in the end they could only agree with Catalya's statement. For the first time, Audrey had an idea of questioning her insistence on the voting system just now. Among the current members of the Tarot Club, Little Sun has just come out of the God-forsaken land, and there are many things that need to be understood and improved, and Mr. Vampire, obviously, can be ignored. Mr. Moon and Miss Magician don't seem to be people who can stand on their own. Only myself, Mr. Hanged Man, and Ms. Hermit will consider things in the long run. In this case, is the voting system really suitable? Ms. Hermit is deliberately teaching herself a lesson. If that's the case, then I have a suitable candidate for the Tarot Club. There is absolutely no problem with her character, and her strength is not bad. She is already a Sequence 5 punishment knight. Furs smiled and pushed Zio out. Who will be responsible for the investigation? Furs's question made all the Tarot Club members silent. Catalya lowered her head. She was busy dealing with various affairs of the Starsea Kingdom and had no time at all. Leonard looked away. He was busy wandering around as a bard and didn't want to stop halfway because of such a thing. Alger also remained silent. Mr. Fool was sleeping, and the Church of Poseidon might have various incidents. As the Pope, he didn't have the leisure to investigate whether a person was suitable to join the Tarot Club. Little Sun pursed his lips tightly and secretly glanced at Mr. Hanged Man. He was not very familiar with human society. Emlyn had no idea about this at all. If he had this time, wouldn't it be nice for him to stay in the house and play with his dolls? Audrey hesitated to speak. She did have the time, but she already knew that the person recommended by Miss Magician was Hugh. There was nothing she needed to investigate about Hugh. Let's vote directly. Audrey sighed. Then she cast an affirmative vote first. Catalya also cast one, and Leonard cast his own. Together with the one in Forsy's hand, the voting ended early. Alger looked at this scene with a complicated expression. He thought about whether he should discuss with Miss Justice in private to change the voting system. Otherwise, when something happens in the future, the vote will be like this every time. It will be difficult to do. Audrey also had the same idea. The voting system was too restrictive, especially since each member had different cognitive levels. Even if they knew that 1 + 1 = 2, some people would vote the opposite. An organization of 7 people is like this. No wonder the Kingdom Republic has so many shortcomings. Because the level of congressmen is also mixed, no matter how good the decision-making is, it cannot save the IQ of a group of stupid people. This tarot session without Mr. Fool did not last long, and it soon ended with Forsy in a good mood. When all members of the Tarot Society leave the grey fog and return to the real world. Deeper in the Source Castle, thick grey fog isolated the small space where the long bronze table was located. In the Origin Castle at the other end, Klein and the Lord of Mysteries fell into a silent sleep. Bypass this sleeping place, at the top of the giant stairs. A light door stood silently. Above the light door, the original white cocoons had all broken out, leaving only empty shells, swaying emptily in the wind. In the Palace of Stars, Hastur, overlooking the entire real world, is keenly aware that there are fluctuations that do not belong to this era, which are being born from Source Castle and then slowly integrating into this world. The Age of Stars, does it really refer to the stars that are high up in the sky, overlooking everything? Perhaps, it refers to the time travelers from the Source Castle who were of the same era as Klein, Rissel, and the Goddess of the Night. They are the stars lit up by Klein's hands. They are like the stars in the sky, reincarnated, and descended to Earth to experience calamity. Why do I feel like I'm watching Water Margin? The corners of Asta's mouth raised slightly, and he was in a good mood. In the coming era, it won't be boring anymore. Just thinking about what kind of impact a group of time travelers from the Earth will have on this era is interesting and worth checking out. Hastur watched quietly for a while, and clones descended into the real world along various lights. In the capital of the Republic of Intis, the residence of the new Archon, Roger Gustav, the former Emperor of Intis, Rissel, felt a creepy feeling in his heart. He wanted to capture this feeling carefully, but he couldn't do it. Will there be any big things happening recently? Or is it just about me? Rissel stood on the third-floor balcony of his residence, overlooking the street below, and found that there seemed to be a lot more eyes looking at this place nearby. The world is still not very peaceful recently. Although the war has ended and all countries are recuperating, various mysterious events have occurred frequently for some time. Fortunately, these mysterious events did not cause any big noise. The members of the Steam Church of Punishers alone suppressed these anomalies. But recently, some strange and new things happen from time to time. For example, someone suddenly wakes up from a sickbed, speaks a strange language that no one can understand, and has an accent from an unknown place. In the end, he is ecstatic, as if he is crazy and stimulated by something. Some people woke up in the middle of the night and sat on the street crying, as if they had encountered something extremely tragic. Some people also muttered words that did not belong to this world, as if they had suddenly obtained some taboo knowledge. There were also inexplicably more people going to the library, mostly young men and women, regardless of their wealth. They all read and learned various knowledge in the library. Among them, history books and Rossel's biography were the most popular, and they were often in short supply. Rossel first discovered these details from newspapers, and later disguised himself as an ordinary person and went to Trier's largest and free public library to investigate secretly. He found that there were always 3 people, 2 men and 1 woman, who gathered together quietly every day. One of them specialized in learning various languages, including Hermetic, Ancient Fessic, etc. One specialized in searching and learning past history, from the 3rd era with mythological records to the 5th era today. The other one specialized in understanding Rossel's life, that is, his own life, and even did not let go of some gossip, as if he wanted to study his life to the fullest. When they sat together reading, they basically didn't communicate. In most cases, when they found key information, they just touched the people next to them with their elbows and signaled them to look over. Russell was curious and observed for a few days in a row. He found that one of these 3 people was the daughter of Count Frank, one was the second son of a textile businessman, and the other came from a relatively poor working-class family. It was very strange that 3 people from different classes could gather together to read books in the library every day, and they also had a strong tacit understanding. Russell paid a little attention to their daily lives and found that except for coming to the library, they were secluded in other aspects, as if to avoid dealing with strangers. When they spoke, they sometimes stumbled, as if they were not used to such a language. No way. Russell's mouth twitched slightly. He seemed to see his past self in these 3 people. Did Klein put down all the traversers on Saphira Castle before he fell asleep? What did he want to do? Did he think that this world was not chaotic enough? Or did he cut off all the backup hands of the Lord of Mysteries in order to concentrate on competing with the Lord of Mysteries for control of consciousness? Rissel muttered a few words in his heart, and his eyes turned strange when he looked at the 3-person gang. The next day, he decided to try it himself. He also deliberately came to this library to read books, and deliberately timed himself to compete with one of the men for the last remaining copy of Rissel Memoirs. The man seemed to not want to cause trouble. When he found that a conflict was about to break out, he gave the book to Rissel and picked up another book next to him. Hey, Emperor Rissel, so many strange inventions, and so many classic quotations. Rissel deliberately revealed some information. He wanted to disguise himself as a traverser who had just been born on Saphira Castle, and then break into this 3-person gang. After spending several days, under various coincidences that Rissel had planned intentionally or unintentionally, he finally lifted the 3 people's guard against him and became one of them. At this point, he was really sure that Klein had really released all the sleeping traversers on Saphira Castle. 2 days later on Sunday, the 4 of them met at the family manor of the daughter of Count Frank. In a dimly lit, closed, windowless secret room, 4 people sat in a corner along a square table. Finally, we can talk freely. I've been so suffocated these days. One of the men, Robert, spoke not very fluent Mandarin with a slight accent from northern Shaanxi. Put away your poor Mandarin. Here, we can only use the official language to talk, unless you want to become a test subject of various churches. The frank girl stopped him in authentic intis. Okay, I will pay attention next time. Robert showed a sullen expression. Only then did Russell understand why these three people were able to get together to form a team so quickly. It turned out that they were all his fellow villagers. Yes, if the Lord of Mystery at that time selected the awakening container according to the population ratio, then the number of travelers from the east must be very large. Just like him, Klein, and the Goddess of Night, two of the three travelers could speak Mandarin. After exchanging some information, the man Robert began to complain. If only we could have traveled earlier, we could have used the knowledge from our previous lives to make a difference in this alien world. This step has been taken by Emperor Russell. That shameless plagiarist. It's fine if he just copied articles, but he also copied all kinds of technology, and basically pretended to be everything he could be. It's really abominable. Listening to someone scolding him in person, Russell felt a little embarrassed, but he was always thick-skinned, and he echoed Robert's words, but he was proud of it in his heart. Seeing these later travelers worrying about him made him feel very accomplished. Such a person who likes to show off everywhere is destined not to live long, so he is now sleeping in the ground. The person who spoke was another man named Claude. Robert smiled and said, "Don't let me find out where his grave is, otherwise I will definitely let him experience what a visit from a later person is." Damn, tomb robbing is tomb robbing, and what about a visit from a later person is really shameless. Russell complained in his heart and changed the subject slightly. Anyway, Russell's series of actions can be regarded as creating a civilization that is easier for us to adapt to. Especially here in Intis, if there are more technological points, there will be not much difference from our original era. From this aspect, Russell can be regarded as making his own contribution to promoting Chinese civilization. Indeed, the person who echoed was the frank girl. She had a pair of delicate and bright eyes, and spoke politely, like a college student who had not yet left college. Since Russell was in such a high position at that time, why didn't he develop the internal combustion engine? It would be great to directly skip the steam age and reach modern civilization. According to the research of Emperor Russell, this world seems to have no oil, and the focus of the later Emperor Russell is obviously not on the development of technology. Russell explained for himself faintly. A good cook cannot cook without rice. Without oil, he has no good alternative method, otherwise he would have wanted to establish the Gundam era in this world long ago, so that the world can experience what the technological shock from the old era is. But the electric age is not popular yet. Robert complained. If we enter the electric age, maybe we can lie on the sofa and continue playing with our mobile phones now. Alas, there are still a lot of games in my computer that I just stockpiled during the autumn promotion. I haven't had time to play them all, and I haven't waited for the Silk Dove. The only thing to be thankful for is that there are no private folders in my computer hard drive. They are all with my friends. Quote. Russell glanced at him with a look that was almost like a mentally retarded person. He was still playing with his mobile phone. Young man, you don't know what the fear from the starry sky is, right? The task of building the starry sky will be handed over to you in the future. I believe that the fallen mother goddess, the mother tree of desire and a lot of other outer gods will welcome your arrival. Imagine building a space station alone in the starry sky under the gaze of a group of outer gods. It seems pretty good. If the electric age is not popularized, it will also be our biggest opportunity. Claude seemed to have a lot of ideas about the future. Indeed, we can create projects related to this, raise funds for research and development, and then we can achieve financial freedom. Wealth is important, but there is one more important thing that is related to each of us. Miss Frank whispered. This world is not just a parallel world, it also has extraordinary power, and those people in the church call this kind of knowledge mysticism. Extraordinary power. Can it call the wind and rain, move mountains and fill the sea? Robert's eyes brightened instantly, as if he was excited by chicken blood. Yes, and even more than that. Miss Frank then shared some basic mystical knowledge, such as the two extraordinary paths she knew, the generalist and the reader. The gods worshipped by the church are the ones who have reached the end of the extraordinary path. I think so. I don't know about this either. This is taboo knowledge involving gods. Isn't this just like the immortal cultivation novels popular in our time, where you first have spiritual roots and then break through and advance step by step? Almost. It does take a certain amount of talent to get involved in mysticism and take the extraordinary path. Is Emperor Russell also a powerful extraordinary person? Hearing this, Russell said silently, according to my understanding, the extraordinary path that Emperor Russell took at the beginning was the generalist. The path that Emperor Russell took is indeed very attractive. It is said that getting involved in mysticism is very dangerous. When I was just born, I was questioned by the police and members of similar special agencies. Well, we still need to slowly understand this aspect. After all, we have not been in this world for long. The four people chatted for about 2 hours and ended today's meeting, and then left through the back door of the manor one after another. In the following days, Russell handled the government affairs of the Republic of Intis as Roger Gustav, while being active in the four-person group as Christian. According to his understanding during this period, Miss Frank had a certain degree of wisdom and caution, but only to a certain extent. Robert was a simple man with a simple personality and could not hide things. Only the man named Claude was a little strange. He didn't talk much on weekdays, like a dull person, but he seemed to have a special aura. He tried to investigate Claude's background and found it was very simple and there was nothing worth noting. He tried to verify it through extraordinary means and found no abnormality. Maybe he just sensed it wrong. About a month later, the members of the four-person team basically integrated into the life of this world. Miss Frank also gradually began to be active in the balls among the nobles, as if to learn more about this world. Russell had met him at a banquet as Roger Gustav, and even exchanged a few words briefly. If it weren't for his current identity, he wouldn't mind starting an emotional encounter with him. After all, the other party was a fellow villager, and he still thought it was quite novel. Another week later, the four-member team gathered again in Miss Frank's family manor. It's really troublesome to deal with you nobles, especially those female noble ladies. I think I understand what the style of Intis is. Robert, who was responsible for handling matters related to the power era because his family background was a merchant, half leaned on the back of the chair, with a tired look on his face and a little reminiscence. Oh, the willpower is not firm. With just one glance, Russell saw that the other party had been visiting the boudoirs of those noble ladies at night during this period. He persisted for at least several months at that time. No, it was more than half a year before he was assimilated by the aristocratic style. Miss Frank, on the other hand, had a good reputation and no scandals. As for Claude, he had always found it difficult to see the other party clearly. Play is play, but don't delay the work, especially don't talk nonsense. Miss Frank is now the nominal leader of the four-person team. Her words made Robert immediately restrain his attitude and become serious. Recently, I have been responsible for understanding the task of mysticism, and I have made considerable progress. Now I have a basic potion formula that can lead to the door of the mysterious world, Sequence 9 Universal, the same starting point as Emperor Russell. Are any of you interested in this extraordinary path? Russell did not say a word, but secretly looked at Claude and found that the other party was not moved at all, and even had no excitement at all. It can be seen that he has a preliminary understanding of the extraordinary path of the universal, and he has a better choice in his hand. Little guy, you are quite cunning. If you don't say anything about the extraordinary path of Emperor Russell's starting point, then I won't be polite. Robert smiled and accepted the universal potion formula. Remember, when taking the potion, make sure there is no interference around to avoid accidents. Miss Frank reminded. I know, just like in the novels, I have to retreat in a quiet place. Don't be careless, I don't want to see anyone die because of stupidity. Facing the admonishment from Miss Frank, Robert did not dare to refute, but he also put away his initial contempt and indifference. I will take the diviner path. Claude's voice was not loud, but it attracted the attention of the other three people. Soothsayer, this is the starting sequence of another extraordinary path. The diviner is the sequence 9 of this sequence. It was only because of a small chance encounter that I learned about the existence of this extraordinary path. Claude explained seriously. Fortune teller. No wonder I felt uncomfortable with this guy from the beginning. Choosing a fortune teller really deserves a beating. Russell silently kept this Claude in mind. Very good, we have another extraordinary path. Miss Frank looked very happy. It is best for the four of us to strive for each of us to take an extraordinary path, so that it will be easier to share resources in the future. Indeed, just like in online games, if a team of 4 is formed, it is best to bring together a lineup of different professions such as tanks, auxiliaries, main DPS, and nannies. Robert also agreed. He looked at Claude and said with a bit of sourness, Soothsayer, this profession sounds very powerful. The fortune teller is like a living god. Claude didn't speak, just looked calm. I also discovered a new extraordinary path. Russell looked at Claude provocatively, and then said, Sequence 9 hunters are more inclined to combat professions. They are best at discovering the flaws of their prey and then uncovering them. Quote, Great, we have mastered another extraordinary path. Miss Frank was still very happy. There was no look of shock on Claude's face, while Robert was silent and silent. He suddenly felt that the generalist he had chosen was the most useless. It doesn't sound as tall as a fortune teller, nor does it sound more powerful than a hunter. Miss Frank, which extraordinary path do you want to choose? Claude suddenly asked. I don't like fighting very much. I prefer the extraordinary path of specialization. Occultism is an interesting subject. I'm going to wait and see for a while. Miss Frank said sincerely. Peeping into secrets, this is the most extraordinary path for her. Russell had an idea in mind, but he did not tell the secret spy. Instead, he wanted to wait for a better opportunity and let Miss Frank think for a while. The four of them chatted for a while, and Miss Frank suddenly suggested, should we set up an occult society? This is a great idea. Robert was the first to agree. Claude didn't object. Russell smiled and said, does Miss Frank have any better suggestions? Gryffindor, how about that name? Russell understood from the slightly excited expression on Miss Frank's face that this person must be a loyal fan of the Harry Potter series. What about Muggle studies? Seeing that no one agreed, Miss Frank carefully proposed a new name for the association. This name is comparable to the Curly Baboon Research Society. Russell cursed in his heart. We are still not sure whether more people have traveled to this world. For the sake of safety, I think we should try not to use terms from the original world. Claude shook his head. Russell said with a smile, then we can change the name to Curly Baboon Research Society. Curly Baboon means the same as Muggle in this world. Curly-haired Baboon Research Society. The localization of the Muggle Research Society. It sounds pretty good and interesting. This is indeed a good name. What do you think? Miss Frank read it twice and felt that the name of the Curly-haired Baboon Research Society was really good. It was humorous and related to Muggles. I have no objection. Robert, who knew that he was bad at naming, immediately agreed. He had just thought of a few names, such as Pengu Club, Chinese Civilization Heritage Center, Fairy Sword, Basketball Trainee. The name of the Curly-haired Baboon Research Society is really good. Claude looked at Russell meaningfully. Haha, that's it. Russell laughed happily. Such a small group made him feel like he was back to the startup stage when he first crossed over. I declare that the Curly-haired Baboon Research Society is officially established today. Miss Frank was also very excited and said, there are still a lot of good wines in the manor. We can drink a little later, which can be regarded as celebrating our entry into a new stage. Curly-haired Baboon Research Society. Russell returned to his huge mansion, still thinking about what happened today. He thought of the look in Claude's eyes when he looked at him at that time, which seemed to have a different deep meaning. What is the origin of this guy? Russell whispered, and decided to go out in the dark to find out the details of this Claude. When he blended into the night and came to where Claude lived, he did not find any trace of Claude. From the furnishings in the room and the light layer of dust on it, it can be seen that no one has lived here for a short time. It's really mysterious. Or did he deliberately report a false address to prevent investigation and being implicated by members of the small group? Russell did not stay for long, but returned to his mansion. Not long after Russell left, a gaze that was watching here was also retracted. In the Hall of Stars, Asta looked at Russell's actions with a smile. The so-called Claude was just his clone. Russell could not see through it because of the cover of the Hall of Stars. After all, now Russell is actually equivalent to a Sequence 2 angel. It is still very difficult to see through the disguise of being protected by the Star Hall. It was just a coincidence that he was in the same small group with Russell, or perhaps it was an attraction in the dark. At that time, he only used his clone to observe the situation of these travelers. Russell himself sneaked in as Christian. The Curly Baboon Research Society. This small organization seems to be related to some future changes. This is what Russell proposed. If there is any situation in the future, he will need to deal with it. Asta did not take this matter to heart. He sat alone in the Star Hall for a while and then looked at the starry sky ahead. The Star Conference should begin. This is the first meeting after the Star Era. A new member has been added, the good friend of the Lamp God, the great and kind Father. His condition has improved a lot. At least his mind is no longer as muddled as before. Mother Tree of Desire, Superstar Overlord, Decayed King, Glorious Hunter, Lamp God, Origin Priest. 6 outer gods arrived at the Hall of Stars one after another, and the entire silent Hall of Stars seemed to become lively all of a sudden. Although it was not the first time to come to the Hall of Stars, the Lamp God could still clearly feel the subtle changes in the Hall of Stars. Vast, magnificent, all-inclusive, transcendent. The new changes that are difficult to describe in detail explain the state of the stars at this moment, and he is one step closer to completely returning to the starry sky. The Mother Tree of Desire and others also have similar feelings, only feeling that the stars are becoming more and more unattainable, more and more mysterious and more indescribable. Hastur's eyes swept over them one by one, and finally fell on the new Origin Father God. He sat in his seat, like a big green toad squatting there, the stench and pustules all over his body have all turned into black or green lumps, and his eyes gradually revealed a shrewd light. This is the Origin Father God, the member I recommended. The Lamp God gave a brief introduction to the Origin Father God. The Mother Tree of Desire whispered, "Hasn't he fallen long ago?" It was the stars that awakened him. The Lamp God thought for a moment and added, "This is an opportunity I fought for with all my strength when the stars arrived in the starry sky before. Son of Chaos, have you lowered your proud head?" The Mother Tree of Desire really wanted to ask the Lamp God this question. Does this represent his recognition or surrender to the stars? In the past, they all believed that they were equal to the stars, but they needed to rely on the power of the stars and temporarily be inferior to him. But now, the relationship between them and the stars has quietly changed. The stars have returned to their positions. I didn't expect that after such a long time, I could also glimpse the secrets of this era standing on the crest of the wave. The Father God of Origin spoke, looking quite excited. Is this an era that belongs to the stars? The Mother Tree of Desire, the Superstar Overlord and other outer gods used to think about this question. Now the fallen Mother Goddess is isolated outside the original barrier, God and the Lord of Mystery are both asleep, and only the stars are still shining. I also want to go to the original barrier to spread my teachings and help every living being who needs the love of a loving Father. Seeing that they are suffering, I will suffer with them. The Father God of Origin showed a kind and amiable smile and put forward his idea. Okay. Hastur did not refuse this request. Allowing an avatar to enter the original barrier is the right of every member of the Star Conference, and the Father God of Origin is no exception. Now that the stars are shining, Hastur has the ability to expel their avatars at any time. With just one thought, he can send these avatars of the outer gods who entered the original barrier through the Hall of Stars back to the starry sky. Now he is not worried at all that their avatars will mess around in the original barrier. A new order based on the stars has been quietly built. If they want to enter the original barrier, they must abide by the rules from the stars. As for the specific rules, Hastur has the final say. In this game, he has completely taken the initiative, and the outer gods such as the Mother Tree of Desire can only choose to accept or withdraw. The rest of the source essence is still sealed by the Lord of Mysteries in the Western continent. Stars, don't you have any ideas about this? The Mother Tree of Desire asked the question that she was most concerned about, and the Superstar Overlord and others also turned their eyes to the stars. I have never forbidden you to try. Hastur just responded lightly. The source essence was sealed, which had nothing to do with him, and he did not need the source essence sealed by the Lord of Mysteries. Can the stars point out the direction of unsealing? There is such a saying among humans that the bell can only be untied by the person who tied it. The Lord of Mysteries will wake up before the end of the world. Asta only said this, and let the Mother Tree of Desire and other outer gods imagine the rest. This is also his hope for Klein, believing that Klein will wake up and return before the end of the world. What direction will the future develop in? Asked the always taciturn Glorious Hunter. Let's brew it, and wait for the so-called doomsday together. Hastur smiled. Brew it. The Mother Tree of Desire and the others immediately understood the attitude of the stars. They did not want too many messy things to happen during the period close to the end of the world, but they did not reject their preparations for this. In this case, they also wanted to preach quietly in the real world to gain an advantage for the future. The Superstar Overlord, the Decayed King, and the Glorious Hunter suddenly had an idea. Well, stars, I also want to go back to the original barrier to take a look. The Lamp God also expressed his request. Okay. Hastur treated them equally, and the Lamp God clone entered the original barrier, and could help him monitor the clones of other outer gods in the past, and could also serve as free labor from time to time. Sharon, what do you want to eat tonight? Kung Pao chicken or fish-flavored shredded pork? Quote. Sharon, do you prefer sweet or spicy food? Quote. If you don't say anything, I'll assume you want spicy food, so let's have a spicy chicken, super spicy. It just so happens that I just caught a fat and big wild pheasant from the woods today. It should taste good. Quote. In the quiet suburban manor, Hasta was busy in the kitchen, and Sharon was standing silently at the kitchen door holding a shara. Facing Hasta's repeated inquiries, she was silent. This was due to the need to play the role of a silent disciple. It was precisely because of this that Hasta especially liked to chat with her, always deliberately teasing her, under the pretext of helping her play the role of digesting potions. Especially during the time when Miss Audrey took Susie out to travel. Now the world is no longer as dangerous as before. God and the ancient sun god are sleeping, and Aemon also went to the starry sky. Safety is already guaranteed, not to mention that there are stars overlooking this land. Miss Audrey did not continue to live a leisurely life, but began to challenge herself, and also to understand the world better. Finally all done, I'm so tired. Hasta shook his hands in front of the prepared food, facing Sharon and said, Sharon, I think you need to help me press my arm muscles a little. You know, for a person who has not exercised vigorously for a long time, excessive labor will cause him great physical fatigue. Sharon just looked at Hasta without blinking, and did not do anything else. Hasta repeated what he had just said. A shara meowed and curled up in Sharon's arms, and Sharon held it and left the kitchen. Alas, a man who doesn't know how to sympathize with himself. Hasta put the prepared dishes on the plate and brought them out personally. In order to seek quietness, there is no servant in this manner, and everything needs to be done by himself. For example, preparing breakfast in the morning, trimming branches in the garden, watering, and occasionally sweeping the floor. When Hasta and Sharon were preparing to enjoy dinner, night had fallen, and more than a dozen silver candlesticks were arranged in a heart shape. Although this would make the lighting uneven, it was worth sacrificing a little lighting to create a romantic atmosphere. Sharon didn't feel anything about it, but Hasta believed that life should have a sense of ritual, especially for himself who had gradually separated from the concept of human beings. The necessary sense of ritual in life can help him stabilize his mental state and prevent him from quickly moving from humanity to divinity. Ashera, I didn't prepare your dinner tonight, you can only eat some dried fish. Ashera pouted, licked her furry palm, snorted, and left with a plate of dried fish. Okay, no one is here to disturb us now. Hasta poured Sharon a glass of red wine. Miss Sharon, would you please have a drink? Sharon still didn't speak, but just raised her glass silently and clinked it with Hasta. What a wonderful night. Sharon just smiled faintly. Such a day is really good. In Trier, the capital of Intis, today Rissel formally received the envoys from the Kingdom of Starcy as Roger Gustav. This is the last stop of the Kingdom of Starcy's visit to various kingdoms. On behalf of the entire Republic of Intis, I welcome your arrival. May the friendship between Intis and the Kingdom of Starcy last forever. Rissel welcomed warmly. As the main envoy, Shu also said some polite words, while Fur sat silently beside Shu, expressionless, like a statue that could not speak or laugh. On the way, Shu specifically told her that if she didn't want to talk to others and waste time on these boring things, she should try to keep a posture of being unapproachable and difficult to get along with. Tonight I will hold a party at the famous White Maple Palace. I hope the two guests from afar can have fun. Thank you, Your Excellency the Archon. Shu smiled appropriately. At about 7 o'clock in the evening, the party at the White Maple Palace officially began. Rissel deliberately invited Miss Frank and Claude to attend. As for Robert, his background was already known, and his identity as a merchant's son was not enough to enter such a party. Rissel was a master at attending banquets. Even though he played Roger Gustav at a young age, he was the one who was most comfortable at the banquet. If he had not deliberately kept himself pure, he would have been conquered by the enthusiasm of the noble ladies and young ladies of Intis. Halfway through the banquet, Furs, who had never liked the hustle and bustle, walked to a secluded place and quietly observed this drunken and extravagant banquet. Compared with these, she preferred to visit the White Maple Palace. After all, the White Maple Palace was also the place where Emperor Rissel fell in the past, and it was considered a historical site. Her eyes looked at them one by one with scrutiny, and finally fell on a figure who was busy eating dessert. She stared at it for a while and then moved away. When the banquet was in full swing, Rissel also deliberately created an avatar and approached Claude and Miss Frank as Christian. I never thought that I would be able to come to Baifeng Palace to attend a banquet one day. Russell looked very honored. Yes, this is the place where the former Emperor Russell fell. Miss Frank also felt quite touched. Claude glanced at Russell and said, "It is said that this Roger Gustav is the blood descendant of the great Emperor Russell. He chose to hold a banquet in the White Maple Palace. I don't know whether he is remembering his ancestors or mocking them." Russell's face changed slightly, and he cursed in his heart. This question is really tricky. He should be disdainful of the life of the great Emperor Russell, so he mocked him in this way. Miss Frank also agreed with Claude's statement. "I don't think so. After all, the great Emperor Russell is also his ancestor," Russell said with shame. Miss Frank shook her head and said with a serious face, "You may not know much about the character of this Roger Gustav. His style of doing things is taboo-free, and he does not follow etiquette at all. He even changed some policies and laws formulated in the era of the great Emperor Russell many times." Russell stopped explaining. He simply felt that some of the laws in the past could not keep up with the times and needed to be changed. Perhaps this is the bloodline that has been passed down from generation to generation. Wasn't his ancestor, Emperor Russell, also such a person? Yes. Listening to these discussions, Russell regretted inviting this Claude to the banquet. This man is not only very mysterious, but also very bold in his words. After the banquet, Russell separated a shadow clone and merged into the shadow, following Claude away, wanting to see what kind of origin he had. Unexpectedly, Claude went directly to the steam church and never came out again. In order not to have too much impact, Russell's shadow clone did not enter the steam church, and could only wait outside the door until dawn. The next morning, Claude stretched his waist and came out of the steam church, and then took a carriage home. For several consecutive days, he did not have any abnormalities. Russell knew that the other party had seen through his methods, so he did not continue to investigate. 6 months after the establishment of the Curly-Haired Baboon Research Society, there were 2 new members. One was a burly man in the Republic of Intis, and the other was a pen pal who had not yet met. Miss Frank met him through the literary publishing house. The 2 of them communicated through traditional letter writing. It is said that the other party is a girl. Should we have our own code names? In this way, it will be convenient to hide our identities in the future. What do you think? Miss Frank said excitedly. This is indeed a good suggestion. Robert was the first to agree. Russell and Claude had no objections. As for the burly man who had just joined, he smiled foolishly and said nothing. Since everyone agrees, let's make a happy decision. Miss Frank was in a good mood, and then she said her own code name, Owl. My code name is Mountain Man. Robert said proudly. No face guessed. Claude said lightly. Innocent boy. Russell said shyly. Claude's mouth twitched slightly. To choose such a code name, Russell is really shameless. Innocent boy. How is he related to innocence? Pa, really shameless. Russell just smiled shyly. People always have to change their way of life to be more interesting. He decided that in the next period of time, he would stay in the Curly Baboon Research Society as a hidden master who pretends to be a pig and eats a tiger. On the surface, he is an innocent boy, but in fact, he is a resourceful master. In the end, the burly man named himself the Earth. He said that he liked the heavy feeling of the earth, just like his weight. Owl, Mountain Man, Faceless Guest, Innocent Boy, Earth. Miss Frank counted them and then smiled, and my pen pal, her code name is Muggle. Our organization is getting bigger and bigger. Robert also felt proud of it. I recently came into contact with a member of a secret organization. They gave me a potion formula and tried to get me to join their organization, but I have chosen the extraordinary path of the secret peeper. Miss Frank began to talk about business, an assassin potion formula. Earth, I remember you haven't chosen the corresponding extraordinary path yet. Assassin. Russell's eyebrows jumped slightly, and a mysterious smile gradually appeared in his eyes, but he never said anything but waited for the development of things. Robert shouted. The profession of assassin is not suitable for Earth at all. Look at his body shape, he is obviously an excellent warrior, he should choose an extraordinary path related to warriors. It's really not suitable. Claude also looked at the burly Earth. That's right, Earth, what do you think? Miss Frank gave the right to choose to Earth himself. Daddy touched his head honestly. I think this profession is suitable for me. Robert, Claude, and Russell all looked at him curiously. You know, my body shape is a warrior, but if I choose the assassin who is mainly agile, wouldn't it be unexpected? I'm afraid no one will believe that a strong man like me can be an assassin who is good at assassination. Besides, I really like the assassin profession. When I played online games before, I always created a female character to play the assassin profession. Daddy explained seriously. Quote. Russell hesitated, and finally lowered his head and smiled, saying nothing. Yes, a real man should choose an assassin. Assassin is so good, this profession sounds very cool, and the actual combat ability is not weak. With such a physique, even if the assassination fails, you can still kill the opponent in close combat. Like a female character to play an assassin. That's even better, this extraordinary path is perfect for your requirements. Maybe you can reconsider it. Claude tried to persuade him but to no avail, and finally chose to keep silent. Robert, however, said with envy, I feel more and more that the profession of the Universalist is useless, and it is no different from normal people. There is no obvious distinction between the strengths and weaknesses of the extraordinary paths. The Universalist also has its strong side. The great Emperor Russell rose from this extraordinary path. Although Russell himself did not like the extraordinary path of the Universalist, he could not bear to hear someone disdain it. The innocent boy is right. You are only sequence 9 now. Perhaps in the future, the extraordinary path you are in will have a qualitative leap. Miss Frank said with a serious face. I hope so. Robert did not have much hope for this, but communicated with Daddy about how to be a better assassin. After the small meeting, Russell returned to his mansion humming a little song. What happened today was really interesting. There was actually a time traveler who chose the extraordinary path where the witch was. Assassin, just by listening, this profession is indeed attractive enough. It is estimated that more than one time traveler will choose to take this extraordinary path. I really look forward to what kind of expression they will have when they know the truth in the future. The style of the witch sect is strict and secretive. The assassin potion formula is rarely circulated outside, and it is very difficult for time travelers to obtain it. In this case, I will be a good person for the time being. Tomorrow I will sell the assassin potion formula in underground trading markets in various places. When he thought that many time travelers would change their gender and become witches in the future, Russell felt that this was really interesting. You just wait to thank me well. He did what he said. Within 3 days, many assassin potion formulas appeared in underground trading places in Intis Republic, Loan Kingdom, Balam Empire, Shanghai Kingdom, and the price was relatively low. This move attracted the attention of the witch sect, but no results were found in the investigation, so they let this phenomenon go. Anyway, one more assassin means that the witch sect will have one more member, a sister in the future. In the fairy tale castle deep in the forest in the kingdom of Star Sea, Bernadette is reading the latest intelligence sent from all over. In this large amount of intelligence, there is an astonishing fact. It seems that a group of people who do not belong to this world suddenly travel to this world. The Church of the Goddess of Night, the Church of Steam, the Church of the Stars, the Witch Sect. Various secret organizations have come into contact with similar special individuals. Some organizations even lock them up and directly extract the corresponding memories. Traversers who do not belong to this era are a name given to such people by various secret organizations. The Kingdom of Star Sea is located on the sea, and the news it receives is relatively slow, so it is hard to get a little inside information. Traversers who do not belong to this era. Bernadette only read it twice, and immediately connected the travelers with the fool. She clearly remembered that there was a fool who did not belong to this era in the name of the fool. Fools, travelers do not belong to this era. Could it be that they are from the same era? The more Bernadette thought about it, the more possible it was. The appearance of the fool was too mysterious, as if he appeared suddenly, which was similar to the travelers today. You guessed right, it is indeed related to the fool. A voice sounded. It was the genie who still appeared in the form of the wishing genie lamp. Oh, when did you come down from the starry sky? I came down some time ago, and I was busy wandering around this world. I happened to pass by here and came to see it by the way. How does it feel to regain freedom? Of course it's good. Won't it be too boring to stay in the starry sky? Don't underestimate me, I also have a few friends in the starry sky. The genie snorted lightly, landed on the table in front of Bernadette, and stretched out a finger provocatively. Come, let me see how strong you are now. You want to avenge the imprisonment in the past. Do you think I'm so stingy? What do you think? Then consider it stingy. The genie smiled lightly and said, come, let me beat you up seriously. I am a believer of the stars. Bernadette said calmly. The stars will not care about such trivial matters. The stars are looking at this. Bernadette remained calm. Quote. The lamp god spread his hands, too lazy to say any more jokes to Bernadette. After all, he couldn't really beat her up. He should save all his strength for the future Lord of Mysteries. It was a pity that he was separated from the original barrier at that time, otherwise he would have punched the Lord of Mysteries hard and put him into a deep sleep. Whether he could beat him or not was another matter, at least he could punch him. You just said that the group of time travelers who do not belong to this era are related to the Fool. Bernadette got back to business. The origin of the Fool is indeed mysterious, but you have met him before. It's him. Bernadette quickly guessed the true identity of the Fool. When the stars arranged for her to go to the land forsaken by the gods with the crazy adventurer Gehrman Sparrow, she began to doubt this man's true identity. Just being a follower of the Fool will certainly not make the stars take that seriously. Moreover, Klein later came to the Roadside Islands to have a secret conversation with his old father. Also, Klein's promotion speed is too fast, incredibly fast. Taking all of this into consideration, it is not difficult to conclude that Klein is the Fool. Hee, I didn't expect that. The Jinn smiled a little proudly. Speaking of which, I have to thank the Fool. If he hadn't always stuck to himself, the mysterious bastard would have really woken up. He is indeed your benefactor. I will not recognize this kindness. This is his fight for his own survival, not for me. Bernadette just smiled slightly and changed the subject. Do you want to stay longer in the Star Sea Kingdom this time? Hey, I just stopped by to take a look. I was still wondering if I should take this opportunity to apologize to you. Since you are so busy, let's forget it. Ahem, if you insist, I can squeeze in a little time. While Bernadette was chatting with the Jinn, she suddenly noticed a spatial fluctuation appearing in a small corner of the Roadside Islands. An adventurer came to the Roadside Islands through the travel gate. Bernadette had seen 4C use this ability many times. At first, she thought 4C had left Zio alone and sneaked back. Only later did she notice that the person who came to the Roadside Islands through the travel gate this time was Miss Audrey. She has a face that even the gods would envy, and her heart is as pure as a gem. Just looking at her from a distance can make people feel beautiful. Although Audrey used her extraordinary ability to hide her true appearance, Bernadette could easily see through her little disguise and also saw a crystal stone that shone like a star in her pocket. That should be an extraordinary item specially made by the stars, which can be used to display the abilities of other extraordinary ways, such as the travel door just now. Why, do you remember yourself when you were young? The Jinn said with a wicked smile. I almost forgot, you are already a little girl who is almost 200 years old, right? Bernadette ignored the talkative Jinn. Her eyes kept falling on Audrey from a distance, with a slight smile on her lips. She did not choose to disturb, but allowed Miss Audrey to freely explore everything here. She is much more mature than when we met before, which is good. Bernadette gave her final comment. Audrey, who was experiencing the special customs of the Star Sea Kingdom alone, seemed to notice that there were eyes looking at her from a distance. She just glanced at them casually and looked away when she didn't find anything unusual. Susie, let's play here for a few days. Woof. Susie shouted and followed Audrey, happily walking around with her. Reading thousands of books is not as good as traveling thousands of miles. This sentence is a famous saying of Emperor Russell, and now it has become its motto and the beacon guiding it forward. After shopping around for a few days, Audrey said with emotion, the Kingdom of Star Sea is a country founded on pirates, but its strongest commercial atmosphere is that this queen is really extraordinary. Audrey, I checked some information here and found that the Kingdom of Star Sea is rich in a large number of rare seafood, such as corals, pearls, etc., which are loved by the nobles of various countries. Susie didn't know when she put on her pair of gold-rimmed glasses. When the maritime trade route was opened, there were at least hundreds of large ships carrying the Star Sea Kingdom's products every day, and the goods from various countries could not be loaded of gold coins. However, compared to coins such as gold coins, the Star Sea Kingdom prefers to exchange for special products from various countries, and then transport them back to the Star Sea Kingdom and sell them to wealthy businessmen in the country, thereby making a lot of money. Ordinary people have also become rich following the maritime trade routes. In addition, the Star Sea Kingdom has a small population, so various welfare benefits are excellent. I have done some calculations. The most diligent worker in Backland needs to work 12 hours a day for 5 consecutive days in order to be equivalent to the salary earned by the people of the Star Sea Kingdom for 8 hours a day. I heard that the Star Sea Kingdom is currently trying a new policy of only working 4 days a week and 6 hours a day. Audrey listened very seriously, and Susie was particularly energetic. Now, many people from coastal areas have chosen to secretly go to sea to work in the Star Sea Kingdom, and then earn a lot of money before returning to their hometowns to buy land and houses. Farmer. They call the Star Sea Kingdom a kingdom bathed in golden light. Just as Susie was about to continue talking, she was interrupted by Audrey. Susie, it's time for us to go shopping elsewhere. Okay. Susie showed a very regretful expression, then controlled the gold-rimmed glasses to fly back into her small backpack, shook off the golden hair on her body, followed Audrey, and went through the travel door. Next area, the Church of Poseidon has been gaining more and more fame in the sea recently, and there are more and more believers. Apart from the belief in the stars supported by the kingdom of Star Sea, Poseidon is the god with the most believers in the sea today. Especially after the death of the Lord of Storms, many believers of storms chose to join the Church of Poseidon. Tiana Island is now the headquarters of the Church of Poseidon. Alger, who is young but already looks vicissitudes of life, stands in the prayer hall of the Church of Poseidon, looking out the stained glass window, the last sunset falling into the sea. It's night, and the storm is about to rise again. Alger retracted his gaze from the window and looked at the statue of Poseidon, which was completely different from Mr. Fool. When Mr. Fool was sleeping, he wanted to try to discuss with Mr. Fool the issue of changing the name of the Church of Poseidon. At that time, Mr. Fool seemed to see through his thoughts and said, "Why must Poseidon be a fool?" After that, he quietly withdrew his idea of changing the name of the church and concentrated his energy on developing the Church of Poseidon. Fortunately, with the help of Little Sun and other residents of Silver City, the Church of Poseidon was able to expand so rapidly and become the faith second only to the stars on the sea. But now such expansion has been forcibly interrupted, and even has a tendency to shrink. After experiencing the huge storm of the fall of the Lord of Storms, the top leaders of the Church of Storms made a decisive decision to abandon all churches on land, withdraw their manpower, and focus their energy on islands and coastal areas. After experiencing a period of pain, the Church of Storms stabilized its shaking body again, and then stood in front of the Church of Poseidon. When Mr. Fool was still there, the Church of Storms was relatively low-key and quiet, but recently, the Church of Storms began to show its fangs that once ruled the entire sea. Poseidon is not equal to the Fool, so it cannot be called the Fool. The power of the Tarot Club cannot be mobilized either. This caused the Church of Poseidon to fall into decline for a time, but fortunately, the giants from Silver City, after receiving the corresponding resource tilt, burst out with an astonishing growth rate. The entire giant clan already has 6 Sequence 4 Demon Hunters and 2 Sequence 3 Silver Knights. As for the new chief of Silver City, Derek, he has also grown to Sequence 4 Darkless. This allowed the Sea God Church to catch up with the Storm Church with a deep foundation, and not be too embarrassed. But there was one thing that gave Alger a headache. There were very few extraordinary people in the Sea God Church. Most of the extraordinary people of the high, medium and low sequences were in the Storm Church. In a head-on conflict, the residents of Silver City were not good at naval battles, and they were seasick and weak in water. Recently, the two sides had another conflict on Demir Island. The Storm Church directly sat in a Sea King with a tough attitude. When thinking of these troubles, Alger felt that his hair fell out particularly fast. Sooner or later, I will erect the statue of the sea god on the storm abyss. Alger swore secretly in his heart. Soon, he keenly sensed a subtle spatial fluctuation, but he could not detect clearly from which direction it came and who was visiting. I hope that what comes is not the storm, but the sun. Alger whispered, holding the sea god's scepter given by Mr. Fool, and walked out of the church with a solemn expression. P.S. Happy Lantern Festival. On the coast, the waves gently hit the rocks, occasionally making a few roars. Following the sunset is not a storm, nor is it the sun, but justice. Although the Tarot Club still has the habit of not revealing their real identities, after so many years of getting along, they can almost figure out each other's identities. It is difficult for excellent or special people to hide among a group of ordinary people. Miss Justice, after taking charge of the Church of Poseidon for a few years, Alger basically locked her true identity through his own information network and analytical reasoning. The most shining pearl of Lowen Kingdom, Backland, the only daughter of Earl Hall, the fiancé of the legendary Duke Hastur. There are too many shining halos on her, which is difficult to hide. Miss Audrey, did you come here to play on purpose? Alger did not directly call Audrey Miss Justice, but called her real name. I didn't intend to disturb His Holiness the Pope. I just happened to see the storm brewing here when I passed by, so I came to the island to rest for a while and wanted to leave after the storm passed. Audrey's voice was very soft, but Alger could hear a tough attitude from her words, and also understood the true meaning of Miss Justice's words. She wanted to help herself and the Church of Poseidon to survive the current storm, and leave only after the storm subsided. Alger said kindly, "The storm is really annoying. If Miss Audrey doesn't mind, you can go to the church to rest for a while. It's going to rain soon. I want to find a hotel outside and play here for a few days." Audrey looked at Susie. "After all, I have a little follower who needs to go out and play from time to time." Alger understood and didn't discuss the matter anymore. Instead, he smiled and said, "Miss Audrey has come from afar and should not be familiar with the situation here. I can just be a tour guide. Then I'll trouble your holiness the Pope." Audrey nodded slightly and led Susie to follow Alger, listening to him talk about the development of the Church of Poseidon during this period and the storm that might be faced soon. On the other side, Derek, who had grown up, was on Dimir Island, arranging for the residents of Silver City to strengthen their defense to avoid being swallowed by the storm in the dark night. After giving all the instructions, Derek stared at the dark sea alone. His eyes were as firm as a reef in the wind and waves. The figure of a person facing the sea alone was particularly magnificent and upright. Occasionally, when Silver City residents passed by, they would always secretly look at him, then quickly suppress their admiration and leave. Especially the unmarried female Silver City residents, their eyes often fell on his broad back. Every time such a look came, Derek would feel uncomfortable. Especially some time ago, the former chief who was already addicted to fishing even asked his opinion on whether he should get married, and even said that he had chosen a suitable candidate for him. Derek sighed and let his mind return to the storm that was about to hit the Storm Church. "Little son, are you also worried now?" A slightly teasing voice came from behind, and Derek's expression moved slightly, but he quickly reacted and turned around and said with a smile, "It's Miss Justice. Why did you come here suddenly?" Derek showed an honest smile and subconsciously touched his head. If the residents of Silver City saw that naive look, many people would probably feel like their idols were shattered. "I heard that the storm here is particularly violent, so I came here to enjoy it." Audrey stood 3 meters away from Derek, looking up slightly to examine him. When attending the Tarot Club, the giant's height advantage was not so obvious, but only when standing in front of the giants could one understand why they could be called giants. However, even if the figure in front of him was as huge as a mountain, he was still the little son in the Tarot Club. "Mr. Hanged Man, didn't he come with you? He still needs to deal with church affairs." Audrey retracted her gaze from Derek and looked at the dark sea in the distance, saying calmly, "I think we should be able to calm the storm with our strength. The Church of Poseidon is a religious sect founded by Mr. Fool after all, and as a member of the Tarot Club, she should not sit idly by." Although she did not want to start a war, she just hoped to make the Storm Church quieter, so that the entire sea would also disperse the storm and usher in clear weather. "Miss Justice, this is very dangerous. The other party is a Sequence 3 Sea King, who has unimaginable power on the sea." Derek was embarrassed to speak. "I have seen the other party's power before, controlling the sea, as if he were a god." Audrey smiled and said, "So, I'm talking about us." Derek, who was a little slow, only reacted at this time, and said excitedly, "Will Mr. Star, Ms. Magician, Ms. Hermit, and Miss Judgment all attack together? We Tarot Club should also cooperate once." Audrey gave a positive answer, and then she couldn't help but smile secretly when she thought of the lack of Mr. Vampire among the people mentioned by Derek just now. "That's great. I've always wanted to meet them." Derek was so happy that he almost jumped a few times on the spot. Fortunately, his experience over the years allowed him to barely remain calm. "Tomorrow is Monday, the day when the Tarot Club begins. ... A discussion about the Church of Storms was quickly passed in the Tarot Club. Except for Emlyn, who said that he might not have time to participate, all other members said that they would rush to Dimir Island to participate in this storm event. After the Tarot Club ended, Emlyn, who lived in Backland, sighed and fell silent as he looked at the 3 walls of puppets in front of him. He felt that he should go out for a walk, or at least get an extraordinary item that could travel quickly. Otherwise, if the Tarot Club has any activities in the future, he will not be able to catch up every time. Dimir Island is such a remote place, and there is no similar means of transmission, so it is impossible to get there in a short time. Originally, he thought that 1 or 2 other members of the Tarot Club would be inconvenient, but he didn't expect that in the end, he was the only one who couldn't go. The sorrow of the noble vampires and those ordinary people really cannot be communicated. Perhaps I should pray devoutly to the ancestor Lilith and ask her to reward me with an extraordinary item that can travel through space. Emlyn remembered that he had not prayed to the ancestor Lilith for a long time, and even went to church less often than before. In order not to think too long and put things aside, Emlyn left his collection room and went to the nearby Harvest Church. For safety and convenience, he has now moved to the street near the Harvest Church. After Emlyn prayed devoutly to the Mother Goddess of the Earth and expressed his request, Father Yutravsky walked out of the inner room of the church with a cane that flashed a little white light in his hand. It was a pure, almost transparent gem without any impurities. This is the reward given to you by the Mother Goddess. Father Yutravsky handed the cane to Emlyn. Emlyn was a little confused at first, then excited, and finally restrained his mood and tried to show a calm expression as much as possible to take the cane from Father Yutravsky. After all, he is the savior of the blood race, and it is normal for the ancestor Lilith to value him. The travel cane is not recorded in the records of the churches. It is considered a level 1 seal. Its function is to allow the holder to draw a travel portal in the air for fast travel. Just think of the place you want to go in your heart. It has 2 obvious negative effects. One is that every time you use it, you must personally cultivate the crops for a week. The other negative effect is that you will have a stronger desire to destroy within a month. The more lovely and charming things are, the more likely they will trigger this desire. Father Yutravsky gently introduced the various information of this travel cane to Emlyn. Emlyn was stunned in place, always feeling that what he was holding in his hand was not a travel cane, but a red-hot iron rod. The first negative effect was okay, but the second negative effect was really unbearable for him. His collection of dolls was the cutest and most charming thing in the world, and he didn't want to destroy them with his own hands. Just thinking about it made him go crazy. 1 month. Emlyn was silent for a long time, then left the church with heavy steps. Is it worthwhile to spend a month, no, 2 months, to participate in the first event of the Tarot Club without being able to see his beloved doll? Intis, Furs and Hugh, who originally planned to stay in the capital Trier for a few days, ended the visit between the Star Sea Kingdom and Intis in advance in order to rush to the first real-world cooperation of the Tarot Club. Rissel sighed and could only watch Furs and Hugh leave. Before leaving, he specially wrote a letter to his baby daughter in handwriting and asked Hugh to take it to the Queen of the Star Sea Kingdom. After the visit, Furs and Hugh asked the envoys to return to the Star Sea Kingdom first, and they went out to act alone. Finally, this boring journey is over. I have to take a good rest when I go back this time. Furs stretched his waist and showed a tired posture. Hugh curled his lips disdainfully and said, "You sound like you have done something." "It's obviously a trip, and I handled everything. The more capable you are, the more work you should do. Do we still need to mind this?" Furs coaxed Hugh for a while, and then talked to Hugh about Demir Island. "Do you think Miss Audrey has matured a lot during this period of time? Isn't this good? Miss Audrey has become more and more reliable." "Yes, some people are getting lazier." Zio teased, and then got back to the point. The Storm Church should also let him understand that the sea today is no longer an era where they can easily stir up waves. "Let's go, play there for 2 days first, and visit Mr. Fool's Sea God Church." Furs opened a travel door and took Zio to Tiana Island. Storm, it is destined to be abandoned by the sea, and the future sea is destined to return to calm. Pallas commented in Leonard's body. "Old man, are you regretting the fall of the Lord of Storms?" "Leodro, except for his temper, he is very good in other aspects. I have a good impression of him. It is really not easy to be praised by you like this. The faith of the storm should not be cut off. Well, I know what I should do." Leonard took out 6 shiny gold coins from his pocket and placed them on the table, then stood up and left the bar humming a little tune. He was also looking forward to the first cooperation of the Tarot Club in the real world. In the Rorstad Islands, Catalia was a little nervous and talked to the Queen about her idea of leaving for a few days temporarily. She thought the Queen would ask her what happened, but she just nodded and asked her to pay attention to safety and agreed to her short-term vacation application. After Catalia arranged some political affairs of the Star Sea Kingdom, she drove the future at full speed to Demir Island. A few days later, when Catalia arrived at the waters near Demir Island, she found that it was covered with layers of black clouds and the storm could come at any time. She let the future stop in the distant sea, and left alone to the island. After just a short stroll for half a day, she had already explored the situation on Demir Island. At present, the Church of the Storm Church and the Church of the Sea God Church each occupied the east and west sides, and the believers were also divided into two parts. Sometimes there were some bloody conflicts, but they were all under control. Now it is still in the stage of mutual testing, but it is only a matter of time before a large-scale conflict breaks out. At night, when Catalia chose a hotel to rest, she was about to close the door, and the door opposite opened, and a blonde girl with blue eyes, like an angel, walked out. Miss Audrey, also the Justice Lady of the Tarot Club. Catalia smiled and nodded at Audrey, and then went to the other party's room at Audrey's invitation. Wait a little while, there will be new friends coming. Audrey smiled and poured a cup of tea for Catalia. The Tarot Club is only suitable for you, even if it is only a temporary leader. Catalia did not beat around the bush, but went straight to the point. I don't have any such idea. But you are the most suitable candidate. Is the current Tarot Club not good? Audrey drank her tea elegantly, her eyes as clear and bright as a lake embedded in the forest. Not suitable. Catalia shook her head and said, an organization needs a backbone to maintain stability, just like building a house, it also needs a main beam to support the sky. Why don't you consider Mr. Hangman? Because he already has a desire for power. Ms. Hermit, aren't you also a suitable candidate? I have too many things to deal with in the real world, and I don't have the energy or qualifications to lead the Tarot Club. Seeing that Audrey seemed unmoved, Catalia continued, do you also think that voting is the most suitable way for the Tarot Club? Audrey did not answer, but just drank tea calmly, lying on the side. Susie, who was lying on the ground, said, Madam, not every organization needs a leader. Audrey chose to believe in you, and you should also believe in yourself. Catalia's expression was dull for 2 or 3 seconds, and she came back to her senses and said, this is not a question of trust, but a more practical approach. No, in my opinion, this is a simple question of trust. Susie, who was lying on the ground, stood up from the ground, shook her golden hair and said, Audrey always believes in the future growth of Tarot Club members, and believes that you will have enough wisdom to make the right choice at the right time. Audrey narrowed her eyes slightly, with a faint smile on the corner of her mouth, and she was in a very happy mood. There are always stupid people in a group of people. Then do you think that the majority of Tarot Club members are stupid? Even if there is only one vote, being stupid at a critical moment is enough to be fatal. So Audrey has always chosen to believe. What do you think of the House of Commons and House of Lords system in the Kingdom of Loan? Inevitable stupidity. Susie answered seriously, before there is a perfect system, any system will have its flaws. Our history is growing in constant mistakes. Catalia finally got serious and looked at the golden retriever in front of her again. The other party's words and deeds, as well as the depth of his thoughts, gave her a very strange feeling, as if the soul of an old human scholar was put into the skin of a golden retriever. You, or all of us, should admit that perfection basically does not exist, and we can only keep moving towards it. Of course, discussing this matter is not very related to the topic we just talked about. I am just stating a simple fact. Trusting others is an excellent quality. Audrey has always done well in this regard. She never thinks that she is more capable than others and can make decisions for others without authorization. Stupid people should also have the opportunity to choose. Susie continued to talk freely. Catalia put aside her contempt and began to talk to Susie in an equal manner. Audrey just kept quiet and let the Hermit Lady chat with Susie. She knew Susie's ability very well. The Hermit Lady probably would have some mental problems. When Furs and Hugh also came to the hotel, they followed the breath that Audrey deliberately released and came to the door of the room. When they opened the door, the first scene that came into view was Susie chatting with an elegant lady wearing a magic robe decorated with stars. In this chat between one person and one dog, Susie occupied a dominant position, like a lecturer standing in front of the podium to teach. Furs and Hugh looked at each other tacitly, and both felt that this world was indeed too crazy. Audrey signaled them to sit quietly and not disturb Catalia and Susie, who were chatting. Furs and Hugh sat quietly beside Audrey, and then listened carefully to the chat between Catalia and Susie. It was a chat, but it was more like a debate. They had a deep knowledge base and could talk about anything. At first, Zio just listened carefully, but later he joined in the conversation between the man and the dog. Furs shuddered all over and looked at Audrey with a slightly horrified look. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.